Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2020. It is 7 o'clock p.m., and this is a Moscow City Regular Council meeting. If you'd all please rise with me, I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us and joining us this evening. We have got a full agenda of things, and I will start off with item number 1, which will be the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Whoop.
Maureen beat you. Okay, the consent
I'm sitting in
agenda,
spot.
I have a motion by Art and a second by Maureen to approve the consent agenda as it is stated. I will start to roll with Brandy.
Aye.
And Gina?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Arthur?
Aye.
And Ann, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, there she is. Hi, Ann.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 2, which is staff recognition report. Gary Reedner, sir, do you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. With that, item number 3, mayor's appointments, I have none. And so we're going to go into public comment, mayor's response period. It usually lasts for 15 minutes, folks. But we have some rules when we do this. When we have public comments, as long as it's something not on this evening's agenda, you can speak on other things, but not on this evening's stuff. There'll be time for each thing. We have several public hearings tonight. We've got several public action things that we're going to deal with as well. Or something in front of planning and zoning and or board of adjustment. So what I do is I let you have at least 3 minutes, and please adhere to that time frame on anything that we do, because after 3 minutes, I cut you off. So I'm slightly lenient, but I won't let people ramble on in order so that as many people can speak to us as they want to. So with that, if you want to come up, please state your name. And by the way, we've got Clorox wipes up here and hand sanitizer. When you're done speaking, please wipe off the nozzle up there, the microphone, and the podium area right that you have your hands on. So, and that will be all throughout this evening. So if anybody wants to come up and address this council, they're welcome to do it.
I would note as well, if you're finished speaking and you want to make room for somebody who's waiting outside to come in here to keep appropriate social distancing, you can go down and somebody else can come in.
Okay, sir, your name?
Brandon Schreiner.
Could you spell that, sir?
Brandon, B-R-A-N-D-O-N. Schreiner, S-C-H-R-E-I-N-E-R.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and thank you for your time. My name is Brandon Schreiner. I'm the director of Eastern Washington Surf Soccer Club here on the Palouse and the director of the Harvest Cup Soccer Tournament. I was raised with the belief that when things go wrong, you stand up and face the music, so here I am. Before addressing the tournament, I'd like to share a little about EW Surf Soccer. For years, the soccer organizations in Moscow and Pullman bickered back and forth to the detriment of the sport here on the Palouse. A few years ago, the attitude began to shift and the desire to work together grew. What was formerly Pullman Hawks, Quad City Fusion, and Moscow United merged under the Surf Soccer family to provide more and better soccer opportunities for the players on the Palouse. So although surf is a relatively new name in the area, the people involved have been a part of Moscow community for years. I've personally coached some city's officials' children and even grandchildren. I come here today for 3 things: apology, clarification, and thanks. First, I want to apologize to Mayor Lambert and the staff of Moscow's Parks and Rec. I had every intention of providing a safe and fun environment for a weekend of soccer. I failed to properly deliver on one of those, and for that I apologize. Mayor Lambert, if your phone and email inbox is anything like mine, I apologize times 100.
Yes, sir.
Quite simply, on Saturday we failed as a tournament to properly enforce masking and social distancing rules. We had full compliance from our coaches and players on team bench side. Unfortunately, we didn't do quite as good job on the spectator side of the field. As a city official who was there and tried on Saturday morning found out, it was a much bigger job than anyone anticipated. Mayor Lambert, I'm sure if you of all people know, you can ask until you're blue in the face. It's up to the people to listen and do. I wanted to apologize to the city officials who work hard enough during the week, who had to come out to the tournament and deal with these issues on the weekend. I also want to apologize to those in the city who feel the tournament put you at risk. It was not the intention of the tournament and definitely not mine as the tournament director. Which brings me to clarification. The Harvest Cup tournament is a small-sided tournament for players ages 5 through adult. Though new by name, this tournament is over 20 years old. You just know it better as the Palouse Cup. To clarify, it was moved to Pullman last year to celebrate our new merger with the players of Pullman. We brought it back to Moscow this year because of a desire to rotate between the two cities, and also because, all credit to the city of Moscow, especially Parks and Rec, you guys provide good quality and large fields for us to use. This tournament has been in the planning for over a year, well before COVID and all the complications that brings. In the past 2 months, I've spent countless hours in city and state's officials' offices and on their telephones. I know at least one city official who will be glad to not see me walk in his office for quite some time. It was not our original intent to hold this tournament in city fields. It was originally planned for University of Idaho, Guy Wicks. But with moving the date of commencement, I had to fall to my backup plan and use Euler and Mountain View. As the tournament grew, I added Lena and McDonald, and I tried to add more field space, but was not able to. Trust me, if there's a piece of grass in Moscow, I talked to the owner and tried to borrow or rent it. The poor guy who lives next to Mountain View must have thought I was nuts when I asked if I could rent his front yard. I could go into more depth about the precautions taken just on the field, but I'll save you the time. Sorry, it's hard to breathe in this thing.
It's okay.
As for teams, I have read national, state, and city COVID websites of Idaho and Washington so many times I could probably draw you a county map from memory. I want to make clear, every team that was allowed into the tournament was vetted to make sure they came from a county that met both phase and case number standards. I had a spreadsheet with phase and weekly updates for every county in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. EW Surf. Can I speak without this on for now? No.
Well, you can actually, you can speak with it off so we can hear you, because you're social distance away from
Sorry.
everybody. So, yeah, they'll be fine. So,
All right. EW Surf is a 3-part club with affiliates in Spokane, here on the Palouse, and Columbia Basin. We turned our way our own affiliates in Columbia Basin because it was not safe for them to come. For the record, I received numerous emails and phone calls complaining that, and to quote one, I know for a fact we have teams coming from our county to play in a baseball tournament that exact weekend in that exact area. We could have easily doubled our tournament had we ignored safety guidelines and allowed anyone and everyone to come. Cleanliness. I spent well over $1,000 on keeping the fields as clean as possible. I have 5 gallons of leftover hand sanitizer, all of which will be donated to the assisted living centers in Moscow. I paid for extra bathrooms. I even provided toilet seat covers, and I tried to get the water turned back on so I could even have sinks in the middle of a soccer field. Just didn't go well. So even the referees had little spray bottles to clean the game ball, and I spent a small fortune on bringing golf carts in so we could get around the complex easier and clean it. We forfeited vendor revenue by not having food or t-shirts at the tournament so people wouldn't hang out in the park. And for other safety measures, the first thing you see on our tournament website has always been safety guidelines and mask mandates. I made sure to follow all city guidelines and went above and beyond what was asked. Signage was all over the field, and you can see some of it on the local news postings. I had 3 designated COVID marshals who continuously cleaned and tried to enforce social distancing and mask rules. So what went wrong? I believe it to be a mixture of things. Saturday, people arrived at the fields with an energy. It felt like normality for soccer people, and everyone wanted to soak up every minute of it. Mm-hmm. Even the clouds helped keep it cool, so no need to run for shade. Everybody just wanted to hang out.
Brandon, I'm going to give you 1 more minute.
Nobody wanted to leave. People haven't seen their teams in months, and they all wanted back in their soccer communities again. With not providing food, we expected people to venture out and leave the fields. They just simply didn't. Everybody came, and it was just a nightmare to enforce social distancing. So I take full responsibility that we did not do a good job at enforcing the rules on the spectator sideline on Saturday. On Sunday, I think we did fantastic with 100% or 99% on each field. After Saturday night, I received a call from the city, and we sent out new rules and new guidelines for everybody that they followed. That brings us to shutting down the tournament, a decision I respect and 100% understand. We didn't do our jobs on Saturday well enough, and the snowball we created made Sunday moot. We were warned repeatedly, and our spectators failed to heed that warning in time. There's a sentiment from the baseball tournament and the mayor's statement in the Moscow Pullman Daily News that soccer is to blame. Perhaps it was only the 2 games of baseball I watched at Joseph that had absolutely no social distancing or masking, especially in the dugouts, but I don't want to make generalizations about an entire tournament off of such a short experience. I also don't want to pit youth sports against one another. I will stop any narrative from the soccer side blaming baseball, and I hope their organization will take responsibility and do the same. There's enough blame to go around, and all it will do is damage youth sports in the area.
Okay, Brandon, I'm going to have you stop, and I want to say a couple of things here. Number one, don't beat yourself up. One of the things that we discovered is these tournaments are just uncontrollable. And I saw that with my own eyes on Saturday afternoon out there. And it was, I did not make a statement that to anybody that it was your guys' fault. The whole thing was completely out of control. And to your point, both tournaments were stopped. So the baseball one was stopped as well as the soccer. It wasn't just you folks. And the decision was made that the tournaments, while we're going through this pandemic, because we all have to remember that, is ending. And it was one of those unfortunate things that happened. I really believe you personally did a good job, but that's what happens when you have 500 to 1,000 people. You cannot control everybody. And people coming from other communities that have been locked down, it's a nice thing. You're in a nice area, and hey, this isn't their home, so it's kind of like being, I wouldn't say on hooky or whatever, but you don't need to necessarily pay attention to what you're doing in someone else's community. So with that being said, we worked through it. We got, the things done, and it's over with, and we'll move forward. And I appreciate you as a man coming up here and having the responsibility and saying what you did. That's very, very big in my eyes, and we appreciate that. So, that being said, best wishes to you. And by the way, for everybody out there in audience land, one of my sons is a surf coach. I'll throw that out there for you guys to know. So,
I wasn't going to say anything.
nope, but I threw it out there for the record, Brandon. So, and him and I discussed it at full length on both Saturday and Sunday. So thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to extend this comment period for a few more minutes because I let Brandon go over. I thought it was too important for us to. Thank you, Brandon. I thought it was too important for all of us to hear what he had to say. So if somebody else would like to come up, that would be great. Okay, well, with that, we're going to. Okay, come on up, sir, and I will state your name. I'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, I am Steve Merriam, and I want to say there's an awful lot of things that I love about this town that have been shut down, and we all know why, and I didn't take to it at first, but as time went on, I've talked to people. I have coworkers that have wives, one of them, they've been married 40 years. She's the love of his life, and I asked, hey, why are you so worried about, we were working at work. He says, well, my wife is over 70 and she has a collapsed lung, and if she gets it, she's dead. And I said, oh, okay, I understand. Anyway, that being said, I'd love to see things open up. We do have to protect our neighbors. That's basic decency. That's being a neighbor. So I would encourage you in a nuanced response, balance the two of opening things up, especially with the kids coming back to the university. We're going to have to keep a pretty close eye on things in here. And hopefully we can we can manage things and we won't have a resurgence, and a couple months later, we can loosen things up and go back to a bit more normalcy. Thank you.
You're welcome, Steve.
Steve, could you spell your last name for me, please?
Sure. Merriam.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve. You may sit down. I have, one of the things that I'll say is that, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're in a pandemic. That pandemic is not going to go away. What we're doing, and folks are going to have a chance to talk when we start talking about the mask mandates, so I really don't want to hear any more about that till we get to that item in the agenda. But with that being said, I will say this, is we need to work together. I personally, as well as this council, my whole thing is protecting our citizens, protecting our businesses, and of course, protecting our wonderful university. It's been the godsend of this town for well over 120 years. With that being said, we've got to work together on things. And in my view, wearing a mask is pretty doggone easy. Do I like doing it? Not particularly, but I'm going to do it because I care about the people to the left of me, the right of me, in front of me, my neighbors, my friends, my relatives. And so we're just moving forward. We're just stepping on it. We're not infringing on anybody's rights, and there'll be more that we'll discuss with that. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to item number 5, which is Citizens Commission Report, Human Rights Commission. Chief Fry and Ken Foss is with us this evening. Hello, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce to you Ken Fonce. He's the Chair of the Human Rights Commission. He's going to do a short presentation of the activities that have taken place over the last year. So Zach will come in and set that up for us. So thank you.
Hello, Ken.
Hello. Thanks, Chief Fry. So Mayor Lambert, City Council members, thank you for having me. And actually, we got to go back for our annual report. And it's slightly shorter than normal because we didn't have very many events between March and July. So, like everything else. So it's a little lower. But I want to go through what we've done over the last year and what we have in the works right now. And so, but first I want to show you the commission members. So, thank you, Gary. And so the commission members are listed here. We have a full commission again. We have 3 new members near the bottom there that fleshed us all out. So once again, we're full, which we don't really seem to have a problem with for very long. And so to start off with then, over this last year, so I'm covering from end of July up to today is basically over the last year. And so we did last September, the Inclusive Communities Month, and our theme for that month, and we do this every year, and with a month's worth of activities. And this last month in September, our theme was mental health. And so we were looking at mental health issues. And we worked very closely with the Latah Recovery Center. We partnered with them and NAMI. And so we put on this event, the Family and Teen Mental Health and Substance Abuse Information Day, because of the help with teenagers. Because the Latah Recovery Center, for example, by state law, can only deal with adults, and they wanted to get information out to families with teenagers. We did this event, the opioid crisis hits home, and to look at this. And the reason we combined the two, and the Latah Recovery Center can tell you this, that a lot of times mental health and substance abuse go together because people abuse substances when there are mental health issues. And so we did an event looking at the opioid crisis. Then we participated in the Latah Recovery Center Fair out at the fairgrounds. They had a lot of activities going on. And then we closed out the month like we do every time with the Inclusive Communities Potluck at the 1912 Center, where we provide a little bit of food, and then community members can bring food. But if you can't bring food, that's okay. show up and eat anyway, because we had plenty of food, and we had a really good turnout, some great conversations. And what's nice about this one is we always see people at this one that we don't see at other events throughout the year, and so it's always nice to get new people in, meet them, talk to them. And so that was for September. We then did a presentation workshop, Stop the Hate workshop in October, and this was put on in conjunction with the University of Idaho, and Jesse Martinez and Aaron Agidius were the facilitators on that for us. They're both Human Rights Commission members, and they do this sort of work at the university. And so they put this on to talk about the layers of hate, how do we stop it, these kinds of things, and prevent it. And then going with that, in October, we also did a presentation on free speech, hate speech. So what is free speech? What is hate speech? That type of thing, so that clarified the legal aspects of it as well. And so that went over really well. Then, of course, we had our Shake Community Unity Award in November. We do this every other year, and we take nominations and then award a member of the community who's done amazing work. And we always get some good nominations, and it's always a hard decision. But this last year for 2019, our winner was Kay Keskinen. And some of you know Kay and her work with Meals on Wheels and all kinds of other, I mean, she's so active all over the place. And so she won the award on that. And so that was well attended, and the Shake's son came. The daughters could not make it this year, but the son and his family did make it. He makes it every event. And if those of you that don't know who the Shakes are, they were longtime members of the community, and they held their annual huge Thanksgiving meal, plus all types of other things that they did for the community. And so this award was named after them in the celebration in order to keep their name present in what they did for our community. We also held in February, and this is one of our last events that we were able to do because we had to cancel the ones in March, but Living Voices, and this one was on women's suffrage, and so we worked with the Latah Human Rights Task Force on this one. My mask keeps slipping because I'm talking. This one's on women's suffrage, and what this is we brought them in before, and the actress performed at both the middle school and the high school as well, and then did a community presentation at the 1912 Center, and they take some issue dealing with human rights or social justice or things of that nature, but a historical event, and they do a mixture of film, but also the actor or actress interacting with the film as part of the presentation. And we had a good attendance, and it went really well. And we held this one because it was the anniversary of women's suffrage, so we decided to do that one. Other activities that we did our usual Human Rights Commission at the Market in June and August of 2019, where we set up a booth, talk to people, tell everybody what we're doing, why we exist, all of that type of thing. We also always participate in Palouse Pride, and so in August we had a booth set up in there, and marched in the parade, and then participated in, and had a really good turnout. And we especially were a favorite booth because Becky Talent makes these wonderful rainbow sugar cookies that were a huge hit, and so we had lots and lots of people stop by our booth just to get the cookies. And then we did Indigenous Peoples Day in October, and this at Friendship Square, and so we had a Nimupu drummers, and so they drummed, and then we also had audience participation dancing, so we did a circle dance and an owl dance, and got people out there participating, and the Nimupu elders showed us how to do it, and so it was a good turnout on that one as well, and so very enjoyable. We always participate in the MLK Human Rights Breakfast, and we support it. So we're one of the major supporters of it. And I really like this one because as a proud father, my daughter Audrey won the Rosa Parks Student Human Rights Award, so I was proud of that. And so, you know, it's always a huge turnout, and we'll just have to see what happens in January. And we always participate and add the words Idaho. While Moscow has an anti-discrimination ordinance for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, the state of Idaho does not. And so we continually support this movement. And so maybe we'll get there eventually on that one. And then we continue to participate in the Northwest Coalition of Human Rights, which the coalition is human rights groups in eastern Washington and northern Idaho, and we coordinate efforts, communicate with each other, and that's the main point of it, is so that we all know what's going on in each other's areas. All right, so in progress, things we're working on now. And you may have seen this flyer around town. We've put it up in various places, and several businesses have put it up. Transgender rights are human rights, and we have a large group that are supporting it, as you can see there. And we are still spreading them up. We'll keep putting them up. If any of you would like any to put up or spread around, just let me know and I can get you some, because I still have some, because I printed off quite a few. And not only did we do it here, but some of our groups, you notice, are Pullman groups that partnered with us, and they're up all over Pullman as well. And so we covered both towns with them as much as we could. We still have to get more up. And so the other thing that you probably saw, the recommendation I sent to all of you, is that the Human Rights Commission is recommending changing and working towards changing the city public bathrooms to gender neutral. And so we're strongly recommending that, fully supporting it unanimously to do that. And this is good, as my letter stated, not only for those who are transgender, but also for families with young children, so then they don't have to worry about the bathrooms. Also for those people with disabilities, where it makes it easier, or they're in their attendance. And so, you know, it kind of covers a whole gambit of things as part of it all. So that's one thing we're working on. We're also working with Chief Fry and the Latah County Human Rights Task Force on a public forum on answering questions about police training, because with a lot of the issues going on in other cities, and we're extremely lucky in Moscow that we have a really good police chief and really good police force, so that we don't have those types of problems to that level. But that doesn't mean we can't do better. And so we're working on training. We're going to answer a lot of public's questions with this, but also Chief Fry and I have been talking and working with the university about more training, implicit bias training, and some other trainings for the police department that will be happening in the near future here over the next couple months as part of all of this. And so these are some projects that we're working on. So upcoming events, we hope we'll support and participate in the Human Rights Breakfast in January 2021. We'll just have to see what's going on in 2021, whether it's safe to put several hundred people in that middle school cafeteria or not. So we'll just have to see. We'll try to do something else if it doesn't work out. We're still working on trying to get a human rights art show up. We still want to do that. So it's we were going to do it, and then we were talking about art walk things, but all of that kind of went to the wayside for right now, but we're still hoping to do something, some kind of display along that line. Now, Voices of Moscow, this was a project from our high school member, Daphne Yüksel, and she came up with this idea and really ran it, and she put in businesses all over town and in public places, survey, and you may have seen it, asking people questions dealing with human rights issues and Moscow. And so we wanted good stories, good comments, bad comments, whatever. We wanted just to see what the public had to say about these kinds of issues and tell stories about Moscow, and so what they liked about Moscow, what they didn't like about Moscow, all of that. And so she's collected all of those. It ended technically in December, even though some are still trickling in. And she's collected all of those, and we were going to do a big project, and actually we were slated to do something with Art Walk, but that, didn't work out. But we're going to have a display in the Chamber of Commerce window, and we're also working on a video. The plan is to do a video, and the idea was to take snippets of those and then put them on artistic backgrounds, and then and organize them so people could see them. And we're still going to do that, but we're going to do it as a video, and then make that public up on YouTube so that people can see it. The Inclusive Communities Month for September, we're off and running on this one. And our theme this year, we decided, would be intersectionality, because there are so many things going on with LGBT issues and racial issues and all kinds of other income issues and everything else. And so a lot of times people think of those as separate entities when they overlap a lot. People have more than one identity of who they are. They're this, they're that, they're other thing. And so we're going to do that, and pretty much all of it's going to be on Zoom. We're going to have speakers or panels on Zoom that the public can tune into. We're working with the Kenworthy to see about possibly streaming a movie so that people can watch it in their home, on their computers, that kind of thing. So we're working on alternative ways since we can't gather. And so we're looking at alternative ways to do it this year. And so that's in the works. Now, our Human Rights Commission at the Market, yes, not happening this year, but we hope it will happen next year. So that we'll be back to normal by next summer. We're going to do something for Indigenous Peoples Day in October. We're not sure what that is again because of large gatherings and social distancing and so forth. So we're still figuring out what we're going to do, but we definitely will do something again. I'm just not sure what it is yet. We're bouncing some ideas around. And then the Pride Festival, we always participate in it. This year there is not an actual Pride Festival in the park because of concerns of masking and social distancing when you have a whole bunch of people in the park. And so they're looking at this year of doing something online with videos and other things that they can do and do some stuff like that. And they were talking about that they could possibly do like drag bingo in the park because they don't get as many people and they can spread them way out and do some things like that. And so they were working on some ideas that we'll support. And then, of course, by 2021, we'll participate again, and hopefully, once again, we're up and running. That's pretty much it, except one more thing I wanted to mention. We are working with Roger Rowley, and he's put in a National Endowment for the Arts grant to bring in an artist's work. The artist is Stephen Paul Judd, and he does Native American and Indigenous and African American art because of his background and his heritage. And so we're signed onto the grant for them, and if he gets the grant, the exhibit's going to come so that people can see it in the future. And so hopefully we will. And I like these kind of projects because we actually have to do very little of the work, and somebody else does all the work. And so, I like those collaborations. Those work out really well. And that's pretty much it. So any questions?
Ken, I got a couple of things for you before I turn it over to council. Last year's Chic Unity Award winner, Kay, Casey, I was talking to her the other day, and her name's not on the plate yet.
Oh, it isn't?
No. And
They told me they were getting it on there, so I'll check on that.
Well, anyway, it's not on there. If you'd follow up and make sure that.
The plate downstairs or in the park?
In the park.
In the park.
In the park's what she told me, so I just
Okay.
wanted, I just hadn't got around to getting a hold of you and telling you that. And second thing I want to say is, I really love the commission you do because you always have the thing filled up. You police it and you take care of literally making sure when you have an opening and you get somebody in there, and that's absolutely terrific. It's kind of interesting too because some of the events you haven't done, you've had other things fill the thing up, and we've all discovered that with this COVID-19 that we're working on, that, my God, a lot of the normal things we have used to do, we can't do right at the moment, but other things that fill that space and that time, and it will be great down the road, and someday it will be, so that we can move forward and move on just like normal, but of course now is not the time. Council have questions for Ken?
We just have
Maureen?
to think outside the box, right?
Yes, exactly, think outside the box.
So Ken, I don't know if you've been in touch with Rob Casely from the university's theater department. They're doing a series of plays, and they did a play by Zoom on Friday and Saturday, which would have fit perfectly into intersectionality. So you may want to give him a call, because they're trying to do, you don't have to pay, but it was kind of a fundraiser for, to bring back IRT. And I sat there and thought, if any of the other plays is like the one they had this past weekend, it would work perfectly for the Human Rights
Okay,
Commission.
yeah, I'll give him a call. Thank you.
Brandy?
Quick question, was the Human Rights Commission involved with the food drive that just happened this past weekend? Or did you?
Yes, oh, and I
Okay.
forgot about that. I was there most of the day Saturday. Yeah, so the Human Rights Commission works with the task force, and we do the Great Moscow Food Drive every year. And actually, I should mention that, because this actually was the best year we've ever had.
Wow.
Because, you know, we usually set up in front of Safeway, Rose Hours, and at the market, and we always do well. People are very generous in Moscow. But this time, they seemed even more generous, because of the situation, and they just, we collected a lot of food, we collected a lot of donations. We also did, for the first time ever this year, on the task force's webpage, they had a link that you could donate online. And so you didn't have to go down and put the money in the donation jar. They could we actually set it up with PayPal, you know, to donate online, and they had never done that before, and so that worked really well. So, yeah, it was very, very successful. So our community is very generous and caring. They really came out.
Other comments or questions for Ken from council? Well, thank you as always for that wonderful report. You do a splendid job of doing it every year for us, Ken. So with that, we thank you again for your hard work and the commission's hard work. Pass those comments on to all of your men and women that are on that. What a great job they do.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank all of you for supporting us. Okay.
We're very
well-
proud of your daughter.
Huh?
And we were very proud of your daughter.
Yes, I'm very proud of her,
Audrey
too.
was great.
She just took the bar, so
Yep.
we'll have to see what happens now.
Fingers crossed. Okay, with that, we got item number 6, which is a public hearing, and this is the City of Moscow's 2021 annual budget. And Gary Reedner will be doing the presentation for us. Hello again, Gary. Hello. Gary's kind of the show tonight. He's got lots of stuff to talk about with us. But this, of course, is important.
That's the one. Thank you, Your Honor. And as you said, there is a lot of stuff to go through tonight. Starting off with the proposed 2021 budget. The council, on July 21st, we had a workshop, an all-day workshop to talk about the budget. The budget, as you know, and I've got a slide that talks about this, but I'll take it a little bit out of order. The budget is the council's largest policy statement of the year. It acts as a budget document, of course, a fiscal document, an informational document, and allows the council to look at their available funds and inform the public how they're spending the public's money. It also is a way for staff to manage their budgets, their individual budgets. The council puts out their issues, strategic planning. We started off with our strategic planning in February of 2020. This is an offshoot and a continuation of the original strategic plan of 2015, 2016. And as you'll see, there are 3 tiers that have different priorities in those tiers. Wastewater system, storm drain system, water essentially, and pavement conditions. That's something we've been working on for years, and inadequate radio infrastructure. I won't take the time to go through all of what you see on the board. I will talk about the climate change science highlights need for significant action. That was an area that the council this February indicated they wanted to look into. So we are starting to do work on that. As you know, we have a sustainability program that we updated the council on, I believe it was in December, and we will continue to do that. We have made we're very close to making the carbon targets that the council set out 10 years ago, so that's a bonus. But that is the backbone of what the budget attempts to implement. So, 2020 is an odd year, as everybody already knows. We were going right along, meeting all of our budgetary targets until March of 2020, when the bottom fell out. We knew a recession was likely looming in the future. It was the 10th year of a expanding bull market, highest valuation in the stock market in its history. And then in a 3-week period, it lost a third of its value. So that naturally, as we get the different revenues from the state, sales tax revenues, state shared revenues, gas tax revenues, we start looking and trying to determine what is going to happen to those. Are we going to meet our budget targets? So at that time, as soon as the mayor and I and Art were back in Washington, D.C., I think it was the very next day, the Friday that we got back, we sent out a 10% budget holdback directive to city staff. So the managers all looked at their operating budgets, less personnel, and held back 10% of what had been appropriate funding. So that was a thing that we looked at, trying to make sure that we didn't end up in fiscal 2020 in the red. Budget process I went through, so I won't belabor that point. I will tell you that the budget is balanced as required by law. It is a $96,133,513 budget. It seems high, and it's high for several reasons. One is that it counts taxes and other revenues coming in. If those taxes and revenues are transferred to another fund, that artificially inflates the budget, if you will. So we also budget fund balance, which means if we have accumulations in our capital accounts, we budget for those every year so the council knows what cash they have. Typically in an operating budget, you would not do that, but for full transparency, we started doing that about 3 years ago. As you know, we reorganized the city's management within the last 6 months. We have 4 operational groups now. I continue to oversee the overall management of the city, but I also lead the administration, finance, and public safety group. And you can read it on the screen. I don't need to call it out. But we did something that was fairly unique. Community planning and design combined engineering and community development, which was something that for years we wanted to try and get those 2 divisions to work more closely together. So to the public, it is seamless, and they're going to get seamless service across both of those divisions, and that's going very well. Public works and services are essentially our enterprise funds, stormwater and environmental services, sanitation, which had previously been administration years ago, and then most recently in finance, was transferred over to public works, which makes sense. That's where it should be. Culture, recreation, and employee services is a little bit of a catch-all. That is takes care of human resources, parks and recreation, information systems, arts, and community events. So a lot of diversity in that group. Tyler Palmer heads Public Works and Services, Bill Belknap, Community Planning and Design, and Jen Piffner, Culture, Recreation, and Employee Services. Jen also serves as the interim Human Resources Manager. Okay, what about taxes? So for fiscal year 2021, we propose no increase in property taxes. So the levy actually fell this year because of changes in assessed value. And additionally, there were some funds in new construction that we had overestimated. So $5.01 per thousand of assessed valuation is much less than the average city levy in Idaho, which is $6.93 per thousand. So it is a huge, it's one of those things that the council made it clear that they wanted to provide as much relief to taxpayers as possible. And as we get to the expenditure side of the budget, we'll see how that was accomplished. We've done this in the past, the Great Recession of 2008, 9, and 10. We went through a very similar machination. Revenues were reduced. We tightened our belt, got through that mini recession or major recession, whichever your perspective is, and then moved forward. The new construction valuation of $59,796 is just that. It's property that became taxable in this year. So they're going to get taxes levied on it, and that adds to the city, county, and school district's tax base. Yes?
Just, and the 501 is in comparison to, was it 523 last year?
It was 534, if I recall right.
I was gonna say 533.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have
That's
that. I will note this pie chart, the reason it's up there is because this represents a full dollar of taxes collected from someone paying a dollar of taxes in the city of Moscow. Out of that dollar of taxes, the city of Moscow gets 25 cents for their regular levy. Then there's another 4 cents for a voter-approved capital levy last year for the police station and purchase remodel of additional city buildings. Moscow School District at 36 cents out of every dollar with an additional bond. Latah County at 22 cents. Then you have Latah Highway District, Latah Free Library District, North Latah Highway District, Moscow Cemetery District. So that's what makes up, out of a dollar paid, it's split out in that way. Okay, so talk about revenues very quickly. This is a pretty busy slide because it has a lot of stuff on it. The largest gray area in the bars is property taxes. And you can see from 2011 to 2019, a fairly steady increase. Taxes weren't increased for, or were only marginally increased for a couple of years. And then a couple of years, council decided that perhaps they should take part of the foregone taxes authorized but not taken in previous years in order to do things like participate in the airport, pay for a couple of police grant positions that had run out, so on and so forth. You'll see a fairly large jump from 2019 to 2020. That is because of that general obligation bond that was voted on by the people. Then on top of that, you've got franchise fees, which is this blue area in there. Franchise fees are collected from utilities based on their gross revenues generated within the city limits. Then, of course, the smaller areas are things like building permits, plan reviews, plumbing permits, so on and so forth. And as you can see, they tend to taper off as you go into a recession type thing. So we're expecting in 2021 they will be lower than they were in 2020. Sales tax distribution, you can see this is an area that there was a lot of steady increase in. We get this from the state of Idaho. We have nothing to do with sales tax in Moscow except paying it. It dropped a little bit as there was a redistribution because of paying for magistrate's court. There was a decision made or a negotiation in the legislature. So it dropped down, started to make another rise again because consumer confidence was up. Of course, COVID hit and it dove down. State shared revenue is another, it's not sales tax, it's a lot of other revenues that the state collects. And as you can see, it was on a fairly steady incline. Then COVID hits, and 2020, it's dropping. It's 2021 as well. State liquor apportionment, the good news in Idaho is apparently people drink when there's a recession on, because where it declined in this area had nothing to do with the amount of revenues. It had to do with where that money went. Some of it was split out to go to some other programs by the state. So this is street fund revenue, but as it is a revenue, we're reporting it out here. On the bottom, you've got road and bridge tax, fairly steady like most taxes. And then on top, you've got highway user revenues, which are vehicle license fees, and most importantly, fuel tax. The way structure of Idaho's fuel tax, in 2015, the state increased the fuel tax, and it benefited our roads in Idaho at local government level. However, after that, because of the structure of the fuel tax, again, 2019, the state is predicting that we will see a fairly precipitous drop. So those are our revenues. Now we'll get into expenditures. And the council's heard all this before, so I'll try not to bore you too much. This is something Brandy had requested, that we do a pie chart of where the money goes by department and in the general fund. So if you look up here, we've got legislative, executive is that little 0.27% there, that's the mayor's budget. Administration, finance, HR, legal, so on and so forth. The big brown pie is non-departmental. Non-departmental is where we transfer funds out to support other funds. So if Parks and Rec is a special revenue fund, or the street fund needs funding, they don't make enough money on gas tax, Parks and Rec can't make enough money charging fees for recreational programs, that support comes out of the general fund. So that's essentially a transfer budget. Then this large part here is public safety, police and fire. Public safety is expensive, and so that's where you get that. Public health is a very small slice. Community planning and design, technically this whole pie here is public safety. Engineering is included in in public safety for budgetary purposes. So that's where the money goes. And I would note that the general fund budget is $16,942,594. Okay, so we've had some personnel changes. The police department, for instance, we had 2 school resource officers that the Moscow School District approached us and said that because of budgetary impacts, they would like to go back to 1 officer, and then they offered to pay for half of that officer. Just so happened that we had an officer that resigned, and so we just did not fill that position, so that worked out very well. Human resources, as I indicated, we continue to have a temporary human resources manager. It works, it's not optimal, so we will continue to monitor that, and should the workload get to the point where we cannot do that in a way that continues to serve the employees and risk management of the city, we may come back at mid-year. Engineering division, we had a public works director and a city engineering position that was changed, and we took the salary savings in those 2 positions when we combined management, and we hired a couple more engineering technicians, which allows us to do more of our design work in-house and saves money from utilizing consultants. Community events division is an area that we have a significant amount of that budget taken up by several part-time positions, but we're challenged because we really don't have a second in command. So Amanda Argona, who manages the farmers market and community events, if she's out of town or gets sick, nobody can take over the farmers market. So we're looking at that, and again, as I noted in the budget, that's another area that we will continue to look at throughout this year. If it's something that we need to deal with, we'll bring that to council during the year. Okay, as I indicated, we got through the Great Recession by cutting expenditures as well as predicting lowered revenues. So the City of Moscow employees, I'm proud to say, at that time, they took no cost of living increase, no performance increase, no increase at all in their salaries back in 2008 and 2009. And I'm happy to say, not happy to say that we're doing it again, but I'm happy to say that our employees are, their morale is high. They don't like not taking adjustments any more than anybody else, but they also realize in this unique time that everybody has to pull in the same direction. So there will be no cost of living increase in this budget, no performance increase. The health plan is an area we'll get into in just a moment. It was quite an adjustment. and it caused us to create a new health reimbursement account. Health reimbursement account we'll talk about in a few moments as well. And then we have a voluntary employee benefit account proposed at $500 per employee, which is an increase of $150. We'll talk about that right now. The employee health program is essentially employee health insurance, and it is a function of experience, meaning how do you use your insurance, how much funding does the insurance company collect in premiums, and how much do they pay out in benefits. We have had some significant claims made, and the proposed increase that the Regents had, and we've been with Regents over 25 years, so they know us, we know them, but they came in at 13.42% was their proposed increase. That was a ton of money that we just could not afford, so we met with them, looked at some areas that we might be able to make some adjustments. So at that time, where we could get the most bang for our buck, we have a couple of benefits. One is a $400 annual benefit for radiology and laboratory services that does not go against a deductible or a copay. So that has been eliminated, so it will be go toward the deductible and the copay. The deductible has not changed. It's $300 a year, so we have a very favorable deductible. Amazingly enough, there wasn't that much money to be saved by adjusting the deductible unless you went to an extremely high deductible. But an area that we found out that we could make significant savings was we have a stop-loss benefit of $2,300 per employee on an annual basis. Anytime you pay more than $2,300 out, the insurance company pays 100% after that. And for a family, it is double that, or $4,600. Adjusting that to $5,000 for individuals and $10,000 for families greatly improved the renewal premium. So we came to council and asked if that would be appropriate and proposed a program. Talked to the council quite a bit, actually, and came up with the program that you see before you. So what was decided was, in order to assist in mitigating that impact to the employees, especially in a year where they're seeing no adjustments in their compensation, that the council agreed to self-fund $1,500 of that $5,000 stop loss, and $3,000 out of the $7,000 stop loss for a family. Essentially, that program will be administered through Peak One, and it is something that we estimated that using actuarial data and experience, we set aside $60,000 to do that, which was way less than the amount of money that the 13.42% represented. So with the VIBA program, which was an increase to $150 per employee, when I say that insurance is going up 5%, it goes up 5% not only to the city, which pays for the employee's insurance and half of the dependent coverage, it also pays for, or the employee pays for half dependent coverage, so that 5% applies to both sides of that equation. In the street fund, out of the general fund, usually we support the general, or support the street fund, $120,000. That is historically because of a vote of the citizens to adjust, let me catch my breath here, utility rates and fees back in, I believe it was 2006, if I recall right. $120,000 was the increased revenues on the electric and the gas franchise fees, and that historically has been the transfer. That was increased to $176,000 this year because of those reduced, $180,000 of reduced funding from the highway user fees. Recreation and Culture Fund had a lot going on this year. We talked about the restructure. In that restructure, Jen Piffner, the Deputy City Supervisor, managing that Culture, Recreation, and Human Services, also had to have some of her salary come out of that. So it's just transferring what was paid out of the general fund is now paid out of the Recreation and Culture Fund. One of the other things that was done was that we standardized our part-time and seasonal employee compensation program. We've done that for full-time employees for years, so it allows more continuity and sustainability across that. As we've talked about the last several years with the higher minimum wage standards in Washington, it becomes more and more difficult to recruit and retain part-time employees over here. This gets us a little closer. It does not match Washington, but it makes us more competitive. Fleet Services Fund increased because of the transfer out for 4 police vehicles that are being finished up. In other words, we have police vehicles that are at the end of life. And we also have a fire truck that is on schedule to be purchased probably the end of the 21 fiscal year. And that is included in there as well. I will note that in addition to the transfer out of non-departmental, the general fund also subsidizes streets and parks and rec vehicles as well out of accumulations that the general fund has in the fleet fund. The big news this year, and I'm so proud to say that we have finally developed a citywide capital project, capital improvement program. That's something we've needed for years. We've had them in several different, versions in the enterprise funds. We've never had one for Parks and Recreation or the general fund. So this is quite a change. Again, it increases the transfer out of the general fund because if you have projects you have to do, you have to have some money to do that. Instead of waiting until you can get a grant or for some reason you have a windfall, this actually allows people to depend on, okay, if everything goes right, and of course it's up to the budget and what the council budgets, but if everything goes right, you should be able to build what you're hoping to build in a time frame that you've informed the council. Information systems has seen a big increase, about $107,000. That was basically because we need additional storage. We do a lot of forensic stuff at the police department, and that's all digital. It is Eric Jernus and his forensic detectives do a lot of work. As you recall, Detective Jernus is being paid through the Idaho Attorney General's office, allowing us to hire another forensic detective, Lawrence Mowry. And any time that they get a phone, a computer, a hard drive, any sort of electronic gadget, then they need to mirror that thing so they can analyze it. And of course, they can't alter at all the original machines. So it takes a ton of storage capacity. So it will take about $100,000 to get that and get that phased in. So that is why that has increased. Capital projects, the GO bond, go through this very quickly. Everybody's familiar with it. The police services facility is being constructed even now out on South 95, South Main. And we had intended to remodel the 4th Street facility, the current police station, for our community development and engineering. That is not necessary at this point. The Haddock Building, which is right across from the co-op, just to the south of the post office, came open, and the city entered into a contract to purchase that facility. The cost will actually be less than remodeling the 4th Street facility, and in addition, when the police vacate the 4th Street facility, that could then be sold at the direction of the council, further lowering the cost of the move. In streets, we have a lot of projects coming on. Most notably are the ones at the bottom. We have street projects that are scheduled out, ADA compliance, so on and so forth, but the 6th Street Bridge project, which we are applying for an EDA grant, hopefully that will allow us to move forward with that. That is in excess of $1 million. I believe we'll be coming to council within the next couple of weeks with a report on that. We have Lily and First Street reconstruction projects that feed into A Street, which is currently undergoing reconstruction at this time. And then we've got the 3rd and 6th Street local highway safety improvement projects to increase lighting, pedestrian and bicycle safety on those 2 streets. Capital projects in parks. This is huge to actually have a capital program in the Parks and Rec Department. And as you can see, the council allowed $195,700 of Hamilton funds pursuant to a resolution. Council said Hamilton funds could be used to construct playground equipment and pathways in city parks. So this next year, Milton Arthur Park will be the recipient of that improvement. The other projects they've got, as you can see on the bottom, are all going to be well received. The Gormley Pickleball Court project is the old tennis courts in Gormley Park. We've had calls for pickleball courts, and the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency will participate in that project. Pathway repair project by Good Samaritan, phase 1 of the Paradise Pathway lighting project along Main to Berman Creekside Park is also a collaborative project with the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency. Replacement of the large play structure at Hamilton Low Aquatic Center is about a $200,000 project. Aquatic centers are expensive to maintain, and in a year like this, you're not making any revenues off it. So that is something that is slated to be replaced next year. Future Stormwater Fund, again, as you know, we're under an EPA National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Permit to clean up stormwater according to the mandates of the permit. We have moved forward. We have a plan. We've reported to council. We are ready to implement that plan and implement a stormwater utility that would take effect October 1st. What it essentially would do is you would pay a fee for the amount of impervious surface or loading that you put into the stormwater. So if you don't put off any water off your property, then technically you wouldn't have to pay any sorts of fees. But if you have a parking lot, concrete, a roof, that sort of thing, you would. We looked at it and asked staff if there was a way that we could delay that for a year. It's not that we don't have the work to do. We definitely have the work to do, but adding another fee at this point with the COVID-19 pandemic was something that we thought we would offer the council the option, and so that new stormwater fund is not included in this budget. Water and water capital, we just completed a 2020 rate study, and we do that every 5 or 6 years so that we make sure that our rates are keeping up with the expenses, the operational and capital expenses of the system. Looking at that, we've been lucky in the water department. We have been able to do most of our improvements with current rates, a pay-as-you-go, if you will. Unfortunately, well number 10, the booster station projects made that impossible. So for the first time since I've been city supervisor, we had to incur debt in the water fund. And that debt was $4.3 million in a state revolving loan fund from IDEQ, and another $4.3 million was authorized earlier this year. So $8.6 million. The 5% increase will be implemented in this budget because we do have covenants in those loans that we have to continue to meet, and we need to, the capital program will not withstand a year with no increase. So that's going through. Booster stations will continue this next year. A Street and Line Street water main upgrades are currently being constructed, and if you look on the bottom, you'll see we have some major construction projects for fiscal year '21. And again, the capital budget for water and sewer funds also is a multi-year, at least 20-year capital program. The good news is the sewer fund is in better shape. The large expenditures for phase 6 or phase 5, phase 5 of the wastewater or the water reclamation and reuse facility won't be coming through for another couple of years. So even though the rate study indicated that a 2.25% increase was required. We were able to hold off on recommending that rate increase until next year. The sewer fund does have a fairly large capital transfer, $2,692,000 in support of capital improvements. The big news in the sewer fund is the restructure of commercial sewer rates. We've gone from 8 different commercial sewer rates to 3. So you're either at a low, medium, or high in your commercial rate. The sewer rates for commercial are more tied to how much you use rather than the classification you are in. It's a fairly bold move for the sewer fund, but we think it'll be more fair and provide better value to the ratepayers. So we'll see how it goes. It still has to generate enough money for us to continue providing the service, so we'll continue to watch that. A and Line Street, of course, as I just indicated, are moving forward. We have another project south of town that we're timing with the 4-lane ITD is constructing from Thorn Creek. That is the Thorn Creek Advanced Utility Project. The purpose for that project is to put dry lines, water and sewer utilities underneath the new intersection that highway, state highway will construct. Because one thing you don't want to do is take a brand-new highway and cut it to put underground utilities in it. So it makes sense to do that as you're constructing the streets, so that's what we intend to do. Sanitation capital, again, no rate increase is promoted for fiscal year 21. A 2% rate increase was recommended, but again, we have sufficient capital to hold off doing that. We are very well positioned in the sanitation fund. We have long-term contracts with Finley Buttes Limited Partnership on export and with Latos Sanitation for collection as well. One of the wild cards in sanitation is that council directed us to move the recycling center, and it turns out that with the current issues in recycling and the community's desire to keep the recycling center in the city limits, and if possible, right where it is, we've changed directions. So we're waiting to see what happens with the recycling business, and we'll move forward from there. Okay, projects, we just talked about that. Now we're ready for questions prior to the public hearing.
Questions for Gary before I open up for public hearing?
I gave you all my questions at the workshop. You answered all of them.
Sarah's here as well if you have any
All right.
questions.
Sarah's on board and is with as well, so. And as Randy did say, we discussed things deeply. This budget is, of course, overall much less than was the previous year, so. Okay, well, how about if I open the public hearing then? Okay, I will open the public hearing. It's 8:12. And we will start hearing from the folks out there that would like to talk to us about our budget. Please state your name, and I'll give you 3 minutes.
Victoria Siever, 121 North Lily, Moscow. So I think the city government has acted competent when we don't have a normal business environment to study. We wouldn't want it skewed by COVID. So we have to wait. Anticipating and positioning us for grants throughout the year and for potential COVID monies assistance. Finding measures to reduce employee health insurance costs to both city employees, and insurance is never a small feat. Keeping the business and operation of the city running well while being hit hard by the virus, due in no small part to our dedicated employees. Thank you for your work, a carefully mitigated budget, and commitment to the city.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there others that would like to come up and speak testimony during this public hearing for our 2021 budget? Okay. Come on up, sir, and state your name.
My name is Mr. Jenkins, and I'm a resident here in Moscow. I find it appalling that you have the audacity to vote yourselves a pay raise while the people of Moscow are struggling financially? How dare you?
That's
What
a
is
mistake.
wrong with
What-
you?
What are you talking about? There's no
No,
pay raise.
this has to do with financially, but
There
I
is no
started
pay
with it,
raise.
so we're gonna get into it.
Well, you got,
I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I enlisted in 2013 on April 1st. I was medically separated in February of 2016 for injuries that I sustained while on active duty. It's appalling to watch how you treat the citizens of this city. It's appalling.
sir, this is
Tired
a
of it.
budget,
Oh,
budget
I know,
hearing
I
we're
started
talking-
with the budget. I'm gonna finish now. I'm a taxpayer of this state and of this city. You take my money, you do whatever you want with it, and you're not held accountable for any of it, and I'm tired of it. There, financially, there you go.
Well, that's what we're talking about, is the
You-
finance here, the budget, so
Oh,
what
okay,
about the,
it's
what
part
is
of
it
the
about the
budget.
budget you
So,
want to
okay,
discuss?
part of the budget. You voted yourself a pay raise.
No,
Congratulations.
we did not vote a pay raise,
Last-
mister.
2 meetings ago, at the beginning of, I believe it was
Just hang on a second.
July,
Gary,
you
would
voted you guys selves a pay raise.
Just hang on a second. Gary, would you redefine this?
Yeah, there was no pay raise voted on that I'm aware of. The pay adjustments for the elected officials occurs once every 2 years based upon whatever cost of living adjustments there are. Any employee pay raises would have been authorized in, would have been August and September of 2019.
So then will you be getting paid more in 2021 than you're paid now?
No.
No? Okay, well, fine. Well, I'm up here, so I'm gonna finish what I have to say anyways.
Well, you got a minute and a half.
Okay. The First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. Well, tonight I am here to verbally petition you for a redress of grievances. So you
Well,
will
no,
sit
no,
here
no,
and
no,
listen to
no,
me
you- no,
until I am done speaking.
No, I'm not, sir.
Having
You-
said
out
that,
of
I
order.
read you 2 definitions that describe the mayor and the city council of
You
Moscow.
are out of order, mister. You are done.
The unlawful use of violence or intimidation, especially against the civilian population, in pursuit of political, ideological aims, tyranny, cruel, oppressive government rule. Both of these apply to every member sitting here.
Chief,
On March
You wanna
9th,
escort this guy out?
1933,
come on, get him over here. We're talking about a budget hearing, Mr. Jenkins. Thank you for your service to this country, but you're completely out of line.
okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on our budget. I really don't have much to say about the last gentleman that just spoke, other than I really don't know what the heck he was talking about. There is no budget raises for anybody up here. We deem freedom of speech or anything else. Everybody's got a right to say what they want. Anyway, we're going to move on with the budget hearing, so I'll continue. Is there anybody else that would like to discuss our budget hearing and talk about our budget for 2021 fiscal year? Okay, with that, I close the public hearing at 8:19, and I will turn it over to deliberation with the council.
Well, I think we went over things in great detail back during the workshop and marched in lugubrious detail through every line of the budget. And I think the council, well, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm fine with the budget as it has been slightly revamped and currently presented.
We've got, one of the things I want to say too, before we get into motions and all those types of things, we got 3 different actions that we need to take, and action A will be the first one that we need to discuss. So with that, Brandy, would you?
Well, I wasn't planning on pointing this out. It is in the budget if anyone is curious, since it came up about our pay, the combined pay for that budget item, I believe for all 6 city councilors is about $50,000. So just to give some perspective, if anyone is wondering how much money we're talking about here. So,
Oh, by the way, a counselor nor the mayor gets rich in doing the jobs that we do.
I guess that's the
Or the
point.
hours we put in, or the work that we do. And by God, we're here every single time that we need to be, and we listen to people because that's our job. We take that very, very seriously. We don't mind talking to anybody and everybody, but there has got to be some orders as long as we go along with stuff. So, counselors, who else wants to speak? Gina?
I would like to thank city staff and specifically Mr. Wiedner and Ms. Banks for their efforts in which our lugubrious detail, actually, the discussion and that depth of questions from all of us, really you had the answers to, and it was very refreshing, and I think of the budgets I've been part of, this may be the best one yet. So I too am happily in favor of it. I don't have another 4-syllable word, but I like lugubrious, so I'll use it again.
Sandra?
Yeah, I just want to say a big thanks to the city staff because it's really hard to look at something and not get a cost of living increase. I've been in that position before and it's hard, and I'm grateful that they're doing that, and I want them to be acknowledged for that because that's no small thing. People aren't here getting rich, and our city workers work really hard, and I'm sorry we can't give them that this year, and thank you for stepping up.
Marie?
There's nothing else to say. I really appreciate all the work that the city did. This is my first budget hearing. There were so many papers and so much work that went into it, and no matter what the question was, they had answers for it. And I'm just impressed, in the middle of this cutback, that our budget came in less than last year. There's no raises, and the city worked to try and figure out how to get health care for the workers. I'm impressed.
Oh, by the way, this budget is available for anybody in the public to read as well. Gary, would you like to take a minute and explain that? How
Yeah.
folks, if they are wanting to read this, where is at?
Yeah, the budget summary is posted on our website. It's a document that explains the city's policies, has highlights of every department, explains revenues, taxes, where the money comes from. And again, that's available on the city's website. We also have a detailed budget that you can come to the city clerk's office and take a look at that. It's a much more voluminous document, but it is the underpinnings of the summary document. So available whenever anybody wants to look at it. And if anybody wants to talk about the particulars, certainly you can let me know as well. Would you like me to talk about the various actions? Your
Well,
Honor?
just hang on a second. I want to see if Ann had anything she wanted to add in there. Ann, we haven't heard from you. Is there anything you'd like to add with this before I turn back over to Gary on the actions?
Not particularly. I guess I would just echo the sentiments. Appreciative of all of the work that goes into this every year. And this year obviously is very unique. And so I commend you all on what you've been able to come up with, considering the constraints and the limited revenue that we're going to see next year in comparison to this. So no, that's it. I think, I've said this the last couple of budget cycles. I will add, though, that I think public participation in all of our decision making is really important. And I think this year, as you all know, public comment has primarily been directed at pandemic related measures. And so I'm looking forward to, I think everyone is, for a whole bunch of reasons, when things become normal again, and looking to continue to increase participation in this process. I think it's really important. But no, that's it. That's all I had to add.
Thank you, Ann. Gary, you want to go ahead and talk about the actions?
Yes, we've got 3 actions tonight. This is the stated public hearing for the budget. Council can have several different actions on this. You can pass it under suspension of the rules, requiring 3 full and complete readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary. As you know, let me preface this a little bit by saying we're in a fairly unique situation this year, because one of the 3 actions is brand new to us. That's the second action. That is a resolution to take the amount of foregone taxes, the 3% that the council could have taken this year and chose not to, and this resolution allows that amount to go into our foregone account. So if in later years it is necessary to tap that, the council can. This is the first year that particular thing has been required. Lastly is the certification of the L2 document, which is the document that we provide to Latah County and upon which they levy taxes. City has no authority to levy taxes. We merely tell Latah County what we would like to levy, and Latah County mechanically levies the taxes. And this year, there is a CARES Act program put out by the governor of the state of Idaho that we could be eligible for up to around $1.62 million of reimbursement for public safety salaries. However, if we accept that funding, then a property tax reduction, a one-year property tax reduction needs to be authorized by City Council. The state of Idaho has not told us what that looks like yet. So what we're asking for tonight is that you pass the budget ordinance. Either way, if taxes are lowered, there will be state funds coming, CARES Act funds coming in the same amount, so the amount of the appropriated budget, revenues and expenditures will remain the same. So you can approve the ordinance tonight. Reservation through the resolution of the 3%, again, is not dependent upon property taxes. And authorizing the mayor's signature on the L2, we will hang on to that if council authorizes it tonight. If it is something that to get those funds from the state, it doesn't take any further action, the mayor will sign it. We'll take it up to Latah County, usually after the 1st of September. And if there is something else that comes out of the State Tax Commission to authorize those funds, we will hold on to that L2 and come back to you on the 17th of September. Or 17th of August. So it is possible to pass all three of those actions if council so desires.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Any questions for Gary on those three?
We did have two people that came in that would have liked to have done public comment on the budget. I don't know if they can still do that, but I know that we did have that.
It's up to the mayor's discretion at this point.
As long as they stay on what the budget is. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an orderly meeting here, and if somebody's got a response to our finances or what we're doing with the finances of the city budget, so on and so forth, they got no problem hearing about that. If it goes off into a different world, I'm gonna stop it. So I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't entertain that. Are they here now? Raise your hands, the two people. Okay, here's what I'll do, is I'll reopen it at 8:28, and so I'll take you first, sir. If you wanna come up, I'll give you 3 minutes. No, separately. Okay, thank you. Now, wait a second before you start and give us your name. So you guys are gonna say the same exact thing? Is that what you're telling me? Yeah. Okay. All right. Your name, sir?
My name's Aaron Barucha, Aaron, B like in boy, Harucha.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for reopening this for me to speak. I really appreciate that. Like I said, my name's Aaron Barucha, and I'm a local Moscow resident attending the University of Idaho. And I'm here with my friend Laura Hannon, a recent graduate of the University of Idaho and a Moscow native. We are here to request the rearranging of our annual city budget to accommodate the purchase of body-worn cameras for our Moscow Police Department. Laura and I are not ignorant to the fact that we are all currently in the midst of a global pandemic, and therefore the budget this year will look different and finances will need to be allocated to certain areas that normally do not cost a lot. However, body cameras address a wider nationwide issue of police accountability, which is an issue that is and has been urgent for decades. I have the utmost respect for our Moscow Police Department. I have met with the members of our UI security team, and they are friendly, knowledgeable, and have a clear understanding of how to keep us safe. However, transparency is a key component to how a city runs. The push for police to wear body cameras in no way reflects a lack of trust or a lack of respect for the way the MPD runs. In fact, about 92% of police departments who deployed body-worn cameras, or BWCs, in 2018 said they did so to promote transparency, accountability, and legitimacy. Of those who deployed the body cams, more than 85% say they would recommend or strongly recommend that other agencies follow suit. We are confident that our police force maintains integrity and professionalism while on the job, but investing in these BWCs will add an extra necessary layer of comfort, safety, and transparency for our law enforcement and our general citizens. We understand that you can't simply add in a new budget line, but we ask that City Council and the Moscow Police Department look into reallocating funds in the current budget or work to ensure the purchase of body cams can be included in future budgets. Certainly, this would not be a small endeavor, but we believe this financial investment is a crucial step in making our community safer. We'd love to give you specifics on how this could be done, but as average citizens, we lack the knowledge to make sense of the budget detail, and in extent cannot give you an educated suggestion. Therefore, we ask that you, as council members, consider reworking our budget to make room for the purchase of body cameras for our Moscow City Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barucci. You did that in 3 minutes and .94 Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Now, miss, did you have anything you would like to add? Okay. All right, very good. So now I will go ahead and I'll close. Yes.
Chief says that there's one more person
Oh.
downstairs who'd like to speak on the budget.
Okay, are we gonna have to move somebody out in order for that to happen?
Person come out and just be in the hallway at least with us,
Sure.
and allow one more in.
Yep. Thank you, Brandon.
In the interim, Your Honor, do you want me to address that issue?
Yes, Gary's going to address that because there has been some discussion on that very thing. Gary, you can go ahead and talk while we're waiting for the other person to come in.
As a matter of fact, as the mayor and council leadership knows, the police chief brought the issue of body-worn cameras forward about a month ago, and we've been working hard to try and identify funding, not waiting until fiscal '21, but seeing if we could do it in this fiscal year. We believe that we have a plan to bring forward to the council, and actually, we're going to bring that forward to the council next Monday. So this is just a precursor to that. Will not require any reworking of the FY21 budget, and if the council decides that it wants to do it, we believe we've identified funding to allow that to happen. I would also note that the program is, and certainly the chief can talk about that next week, but the officers are in favor of utilizing those cameras as just an additional way of showing transparency of the department.
Gary, now that is on our Public Works and Finance next Monday, correct? Okay, Mr. Barucha and Ms. Hannon, did I get that correct? So be on the watch so you can see that. How's that? Sound good to you too? Okay. Okay, where's the other person that wants to speak?
I think he's still shuttling him or her up.
Well, it is, you come up those stairs, especially if you're wearing a mask, it kind of winds you a little bit. I have to stop and take a few breaths myself, so.
Get to the podium and
Well.
puff.
Hello, come on over here, miss. You'd like to speak to us?
I have to go over here?
Yep. Go ahead and bring your youngins with you. And what I will require of you is to, we'll ask what your name is, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Up there, it's okay.
It's okay,
You want
bud.
to stick with me, bud? Yeah, my name is Lahela King. Is that all that you asked?
Could you spell that, please?
Lahela.
And you would like to speak on our budget. This is our.
I am curious, I have a question.
Okay.
How are you using COVID relief funds in the budget, specifically maybe public schools, but not limited to that?
Okay, that'll be it. Gary, would you like to address that?
Certainly. COVID relief funds are regulated by Treasury regulations that the initial population-based allocation of $887,100 has been allocated to the city of Moscow for COVID relief, reimbursing the city for either salaries of public safety folks or funds that have been used, or expenses for COVID relief. That's a separate thing than the property tax relief CARES Act monies, which can only be used for public safety salaries.
Okay, is there anything being put towards sick leave?
Sick
Do you
leave?
have any way of changing the way it's being allocated?
Oh.
Like, do you guys have the power to be like, you know what, we're gonna start
well, one
focusing
of
on
the-
sick leave and,
One thing I'll say to you, Miss, is one of the things we cannot use is if we're lacking revenue, we lost revenue, we cannot use these funds to generate revenue that we've lost.
okay, as a
mean,
city?
Anybody,
For
for
business, small
if there's
business?
something we lose, Gary, you might want to go more in depth on that, but if there's some monies that we lose, we cannot use CARES money for lost revenue.
Okay.
Lost tax dollars, lost sales tax.
Yes, you can't use it to replace revenues. Are you asking whether the city could act as a conduit for those funds to go to the community?
No, well, no, I'm just wondering how they're being used.
Yeah.
Like, so you got these, was it very like, is it their federal relief funds?
Yes.
Is the federal government dictating how you use them?
Yes,
So
through the
you guys don't
treasury.
have any way of saying, we're not gonna be using it for that, we'd be using it for
No,
this as far as.
we have to use them in conjunction with the regulations.
And the federal regulations is that you use them for, would you mind
Yeah,
repeating?
well, they're fairly extensive, but suffice it to say, either public safety salary reimbursement, or for funds that you use directly to battle COVID. For instance, if you buy a giant sanitizer, say it costs $10,000, you could use funds for that.
Okay, so you get to decide how you're battling COVID, though?
Yes,
So you're choosing hand sanitizer to battle COVID?
that's one of many things,
Which would be
yes.
problematic, probably in a lot of people's opinion. So could you use those funds to battle COVID in the way of helping the sick stay home, quarantining the sick and no longer quarantining the well?
Not that I'm aware of, ma'am.
Why not?
Well, there's,
Not sure
Could
the
you look into that
regulations
for me?
allow it.
there's specific federal regulations on these things. And we're.
How you're battling COVID?
Well, but it gets defined into there too, and so, we've got to be pretty transparent about it, of
Well, yeah.
course, and because this is money that if we use it in a different way in the federal government decided that we used it in the wrong way, we have to pay it back. And so it's defined, to a limit. Gary, why don't you get this young lady's name and address, and we'll send her the information, how's that? And then you can read through it and see it for yourself.
Well, as you're considering, when you have your meetings to consider how you're battling COVID in the city, I would hope you would consider quarantining the sick, not spending it on plexiglass at all in public schools or in public spaces, because that feels like hiding under the desk from a nuclear bomb. It seems really silly. So things like that, like free the well, let us all get out, free the parents from the anxiety of having to mask our children, which is probably unhealthy for their developing bodies, and free us from any sort of overreach and let us make more of our own choices.
Okay, well,
So
this,
anything you could do to keep the sick home, elderly disabled home,
Okay.
and the well out
Miss,
with
thank
your
you.
COVID relief funds.
Miss, thank you
That
for
would be
your
really- thank you.
questions.
And who are you, sir?
Pardon me?
I don't even know who you are. You're the mayor?
I'm the mayor, I'm
Oh,
Bill
well.
Lambert. I'll give you a full
Thank you for
shot of
your
my
time.
face so you
I
can see
know,
it. How's
eyeballs. You
that?
can't tell if he's smiling or scowling.
No, I'm not scowling. All you can see is my eyeballs and my gray hair, but outside of that, like.
So I hope you, yeah.
David,
Choose
hang
to
on
use
just a
those
second.
funds
Thank you, miss. I'm gonna let you go ahead and move off, and David had his hand up, so I'm gonna let him come up and. Folks, we're kinda getting off a little bit off the beaten path with things.
I realize that, and I only want to make one little comment.
Okay.
Since these funds are available to the city, but they are available for doing public health, is there any way that the city can use those funds to find some people to do contact tracing for us? That's something that's very important, especially what we're going to be going through in the next month.
That's an interesting question.
Just a thought.
Thank you, David.
Be careful.
Okay, well, with that, it's 8:40, so now I'll close the public hearing for a second time. And we're flexible, we gotta be flexible in these times. Are we good out there? We good out there? Anybody else wants to talk? Okay, good enough. So I'm gonna turn this back over to council.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution, or to approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and it be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve the ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings and to be read by title and published by summary. I'll start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Gina?
Aye.
Brandy?
Aye.
Arthur?
Aye.
Okay. So that brings us to our ordinance, and this is ordinance number 2020-07. An ordinance entitled Annual Appropriation Ordinance appropriating $96,133,513 for the purpose of defraying all necessary expenses and liabilities of the City of Moscow, Latah County, State of Idaho, for the 2021 fiscal year, beginning the first day of October 2020 and ending the 30th day of September 2021, and allotting resources by fund for said appropriation for the objects and purposes set forth in this ordinance, levying and valorem taxes in the amount of $7,366,666 for the 2021 fiscal year, providing for the provisions of this ordinance to be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. So with that, I will move on to item B. Gina.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the resolution to accrue foregone property tax levying authority pursuant to Idaho Code 63-802 1F, like Frank.
Second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Gina and a second by Brandy to approve the resolution to accrue foregone property tax levying authority pursuant to Idaho Code 63-802 1 and F. I'll start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
Maureen.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Art.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now we will move on to item number C.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we authorize you, the mayor, to execute the L2 property tax certification in the aggregate amount of $7,276,525.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Maureen to authorize the mayor's execution of the L2 property tax certification in an aggregate amount of $7,276,525. And I will start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
Maureen.
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
And Arthur.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, with those 3 things, we are good to move on to item number 7, which is our public hearing for the proposed 2021 fee resolution. Gary Riedner has got the podium again.
Thank you very much. I have a very short slide presentation, just for illustrative purposes. This is the fee resolution. Fees are what drives a large part of the city budget. Every year, fees that are charged are authorized by the city council. Those fees are, by Idaho law, must be reasonably related to the value of the service that is being provided. So these fees are either looked at in rate studies or they're looked at as far as value. Staff looks at them and determines whether or not they need to be adjusted. They may be adjusted because new inspections, for instance, are required. There are a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it even happens that they can be lowered, which is what you're seeing in front of you right now. These are under land use fees. As you can see, the combination of pairing community development with engineering has allowed us to get rid of the difference between community development fees and engineering fees and actually have reduced the amount of these fees significantly. So that has done throughout the budget. I would also mention that Idaho law requires that if a new fee is implemented or fees increased by 5% or more, a public hearing is required. In this case, there are a couple very minor new fees that are being proposed, so the safest way to move it for the city to move ahead is to have a public hearing, which is what we're doing today. This is another one that is an area that saves money, actually. When you install a mobile home, you'll see an installation up here, where if you install a manufactured home, it costs you $60. But if you utilize that fee, you have to pay an additional plumbing permit and an additional electrical permit. This combines them at an overall savings to the person pulling the permit. So another area that we're trying to save money. We have here our commercial sewer rates. As I mentioned in the budget presentation, 8 different commercial rates have changed to where now those commercial rates are in the 3 categories: commercial low, commercial medium, and commercial high. So those are all based on the strength of the wastewater coming from the ratepayer. For instance, if you have a restaurant or you're a hospital, the amount of treatment that wastewater takes is more, so you would be charged more for that. There's also a restructuring of the rate to make it more dependent upon volume of use rather than what we call a base fee. So those are the changes. Again, otherwise than that, rates are adjusting within those classes, but there are no additional fees being paid overall. So this is an area where we were able to delay any increase. Okay, mixed-use service is another place that council is familiar with. Mixed-use service is where you might have a restaurant, a barber shop, a hardware store, all off of 1 meter. So the calculation of how do you take the strength of wastewater coming out of the restaurant versus the strength of wastewater out of an office versus the strength of wastewater out of a barber shop. So this allows it to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. As I recall, there are less than a dozen of these around town that are commercial. So that can be done, and I'm assured by the sewer department that can be done on a case-by-case basis in a fair manner. Okay, water rates are the next things. As I indicated, water rates, the rate study recommended increases of 5%. That is what is before you today. So you've got all that in your packet. I won't go through each one of those, but virtually every water rate, whether it is base rate or it is use, has increased by 5%. And again, that's pursuant to the use of the rate study. I don't know that I mentioned in the original budget presentation that the rate study results were vetted by a citizens rate committee who brought a recommendation to council, and council authorized these rates to be put in the fee resolution. We also have information systems. These are city programs and other services. So the recommendation is to increase the fiber optic lease rate per month from 0.58 cents per strand foot to 6 cents per strand foot, so on and so forth. So again, just keeping pace with the cost of repairs, the cost of infrastructure, the cost of replacement. Then we have some community events. Community events, as you know, is a fairly new department, taking over some of the different activities from the arts department. So you'll see that some of those are new: Mayor's Golf Tournament, donations, registrations, that sort of thing. So again, because they're either restructured or new fees, they're included in here as well. So you've got different changes. None of them, with the exception of the water fees and sewer fees, are very notable, frankly.
Gina.
I would like to, again, I'm sounding like a cheerleader here for the city, but I would like to thank staff specifically in the beginning portion of what you were showing us, where you were removing the community development and the engineering fee and just making it one fee. Having served or working with the regional housing leadership team the last 3 months or so, the feedback that we were getting was about the complexity and the one more thing, every time they dealt with community development and engineering. So the removal of those barriers is a very good thing. And I appreciate the concise nature of what's being changed.
Thank you.
Okay, well, how about if we'll open it up to public hearing? We're all ready for
I
that?
have one question, but
Okay,
I don't know
Brandy.
if now's the time.
Go ahead and ask.
It's on the mixed-use service sewer rate. So is there no usage rate in addition to the base rate for that category?
I would defer to Tyler Palmer. I know
Oh.
he's on the call. Or at least he's supposed to be on the call.
Palmer, you on here?
I'm here.
Okay.
All right. Would you field that, please?
Just playing with my my screen, trying to get it turned on.
Okay.
All right. Oh, so you had a question about which rate? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That under the new sewer rates, there's the low, medium, high. My question is about the mixed use, and that one doesn't appear to have a usage in addition to the base rate. Is that correct? Whereas the others do?
Yeah. So with the mixed use, Brandy, we do have a few different properties that we'll develop basically kind of a custom formula. So we have base rates. So a lot of those are ones that where we have both residential and commercial within the same building, that where the plumbing makes it very difficult to separate that out. So what we have is we have some average amounts that we're going to use to basically kind of create a custom rate that reflects the use of that building. And so that's what allows us the flexibility to work those into those categories.
Okay, so I think I'm understanding, but I'm not 100% sure. So once you determine on an individual basis, you will be determining which category they're going to then go into?
That's right.
The low, medium,
Yeah.
or high, and then they will pay the usage on top of
That's
that base
right.
rate? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be a blended rate essentially.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yes.
Okay, it's 8:53. We will open up the public hearing for proposed FY 2021 fee resolutions. Anybody who'd like to come up and comment on these fees, please come up, and we'll give you plenty of time, 3 minutes to talk, state your name, and tell us what you think for fees, or any changes in our fees. Going once, going twice. Nobody's coming up, so I'll just go ahead and close the public hearing with no testimony from the public, and I'll turn it over to council.
I don't really have anything to say other than seems to be primarily a housekeeping exercise, with the exception of the sewer rate modifications, which just reflect a better approach to potentially reduce or at least put commercial entities in charge of their own charges for the water. And so that's the only really big change in here. And the rest, as Gina has already iterated, reflects savings due to efficiencies due to the city reorganizational structure.
Randy?
Yeah, I'd just like to expand on the benefit of the reclassification with the sewer rates. It's simplified it a lot. I think it has addressed many concerns that various commercial users had. And I love that you got a working group together with various representatives of the different types of businesses to work together, and that they unanimously approved of this. So that's a great extra, and I know it was a lot of work, step, though, to come up with those rates. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times nobody gets to see how much work has actually gone into these various issues, and you just see the finished product at the end, and everybody says, oh, wow, it looks cool, but the amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes is tremendous, and I'm always happy to see them come out as a finished product like this.
Very good. Gina?
Your Honor, I move that we approve the attached fiscal year 2021 fee resolution without changes.
Second.
Who did the second? Was that Ann? Ann did the second. Okay, Gina made a motion and Ann made a second to approve the FY 2021 fee resolutions. I'll start the roll with Art,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Brandy,
Aye.
Gina,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
and Ann.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move forward with that then. Okay, folks, it's starting there. Right now it is 8:55. We're going to take a 5-minute recess before we hammer through the rest of the agenda so that everybody can get a little stretch, and we will come back in 5 minutes, folks. Ready? Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. It is 9:02. We're at item number 8, resolution to extend amended public health emergency order 20-03. Gary Reed, you got the podium, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I will read the description that is in the backup. City Council on July 6th of this year approved Resolution 2020-12, accepting and extending Mayor Lambert's amended Public Health Emergency Order 20-03, requiring face coverings, masks when in a public setting, and the 6-foot physical distancing cannot be maintained, and maintain 6-foot social physical distancing from non-household members when in public settings within the city of Moscow. That resolution expires at 11:59 tomorrow night, essentially midnight, and staff has prepared an additional resolution extending the original emergency order and resolution 2020-03 through October 6th of 2020. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have. The original order has all the historical background. I would note that there is one adjustment in the new resolution, and that is a definition of face covering, which I will read. Furthermore, face covering is defined as any material that securely covers the nose and mouth, creating a barrier to help prevent respiratory droplets from traveling into the air. The face coverings may be made of a variety of materials, including but not limited to cotton, silk, linen, flax, wool, ramie, denim, polyester, or a combination of materials or paper. That was a definition that was crafted by the city attorney after researching, because the original emergency order did not define face coverings, and it was determined that that was something that should be defined. So that is the only other change other than extending the order itself.
And by the way, we had numerous emails from people asking to define what a face mask was. And so it was a proper time to do it. And by the way, my most recent 438 emails, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share, this is the most recent ones, right up to before we started this meeting, and I'm sure there might be some that I haven't read, but anyway, there was 318 in favor of this and 120 opposed. This is not a public hearing, however, it's an action item, and so I plan on taking public comment. And Gary, so let's listen to see what the folks have to say with us, and then we'll get back. How's that?
Sounds good. Your Honor, Chief Fry informs me that there are numerous people outside who would also like to comment. So again, if you make your comments and you feel like you'd like to open up and let somebody else come in, if you leave, someone else will be allowed in.
Yep, and keep them as brief as possible, so we can get as many done as possible, because we're not going to just keep going on with this thing. But I'm interested in hearing what folks have on their minds, so please come up, state your name, come right up here to the podium, miss. Tell us who you are, and we will give you a few minutes. And by the way, we got Clorox wipes up here. When you're done, if you just wipe off the nozzle, we'd certainly appreciate it for the next person who wants to speak.
Yeah. Tammy Bowen, I reside on Public Avenue in Moscow. Thank you, Honorable Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Tammy, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Thank you, City Council and Supervisor Reedner. I just really am here in support of this ordinance. I know that you guys have lost so many hours of sleep over making decisions for the city, and I am really honored to live here, and really, I would say, blessed to be in a city that is taking this pandemic so seriously. My uncle right now is just trying to survive. He doesn't live here. He lives in a rural Idaho town that isn't taking it seriously. And so he doesn't have anybody to care for him besides his other siblings who actually cannot see him. And it's a small rural hospital that really isn't doing anything for him. And so the thought of having that happen in this city just devastates me. And the thought that I can't go home and see him to my hometown also devastates me. And so the idea of watching so many of the residents think that this is a hoax or think that you're not a carrier and that you're well, and we need to just let the well do whatever they want to, and it's about what you want to do for your family, and instead, it really is about what we want to do for our community. And I think that is the most important thing, and I'm just so thankful that you're willing to consider our community as a whole and not your individual selves and what makes yourself comfortable. And so I don't consider you terrorists, and I don't consider you any part of tyranny. My son is serving for this country, and he is in 110-degree weather. He has to wear a mask every day with 75 pounds of body armor, and not once has he said, "This makes me not be able to breathe, Mom." And so for that, I just thank you for your time, and I thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Sure, come right up, miss.
Kelly Zachariason, 521 North Main. I'm sorry that you're inside because it's a beautiful evening outside where I was waiting in line. I do not stand here this evening to debate or support the use of cloth face coverings for the prevention or transmission of COVID-19. I do not wish to speak about how divisive this issue has become, how community members have lost common respect for one another based on perceptions of why they do or do not wear a mask, how the issue of mask wearing has weaponized and dehumanized members of our much-loved community, or make any judgments that by mandating healthy people to wear a medical device that our honorable mayor and city council members have politicized a public health issue. I chose to speak this evening to humbly request that council carefully consider the role of government, its authority and limitations, and its obligations to provide its citizens with clear and just representation. In that spirit, I respectfully hold you, our elected representatives, accountable by asking the following questions. What parameters define what may be declared as a state of emergency in regards to the public health? When and how do you, the governing body of our city, assess the needs for your governance in a public health emergency? How do you, our elected representatives, determine your legal and civic authority toward the mandating of medical interventions for a healthy, free people? By what defined parameters do you measure the necessity, efficacy, and proposed duration of the current mask mandating ordinance? What metrics are being utilized to assess the benefits and detriments of the mask ordinance toward the public health? Who is held responsible for the potential detriments or benefits and negative consequences resulting from the council's public health mandates? What mortality rate and infection rate are considered acceptable rates for the purposes of both continuing the mask ordinance or for repealing it? I respect that council takes your responsibility as elected representatives very seriously, and I acknowledge the difficulties that you face and the complexities of navigating the current impact COVID-19 has on the health and the economy of our community. I do not envy the task ahead of you. I will, however, leave you with thoughts from Thomas Jefferson. Quote, "Was the government to prescribe to us our medicine and diet, our bodies would be in such keeping as our souls are now." I thank council for their thoughtful consideration on these matters and look forward to the timely answering of these critical questions. Thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah.
If I may really quick, outside of the scope of this meeting, I would actually love to answer those if you'd be willing to send those in an email. I think those are great questions.
Of course. Yes.
Can I comment on one portion of that too? I do know that the North Idaho Public Health is currently working on some of those metrics. They are one of our sources of advisement.
Sure.
And so that is something we are awaiting. There's a public comment period, and they have a draft document that is out with some metrics that they're proposing to answer some of those things. So we are eagerly awaiting to hear what that.
Wonderful. I spoke
what they
with them this
recommend, but,
afternoon, and
yeah, so.
she could only give me as much clarification as the recommendations they have right
Right,
now.
I think that submission period is, for comment is through August 6th, and I don't know how long it will be until after then, but I think we'll all be looking forward to hearing what they recommend.
I think so. I think it is easier for people to accept when they know what the boundaries are. You know, it's the same with children in a way, that if we don't tell them and they don't understand why that is and when it's going to be, then it's more difficult to
Thank you, Kelly.
accept. So thank you.
One thing I will certainly say to everybody here and everybody out there watching us is we don't take this lightly, and if the authority to do this, there is state codes that allows the mayor to do this. And it's too bad, sad in a way, that our governor hasn't elected to do this statewide, because everything that we follow the science, the CDC, Controls for Disease Control and Prevention, leading epidemiologists, which are nations, Surgeon General, our health folks, county and state, and that's where we get our information from. We do not dream this up. And to me, I don't care if we're wearing a mask any more than anybody else does, but I've been doing it now for 3 months. I'm going to do it until this pandemic is beside us. And one of the things we all have to remember, there's not a person in this room or watching on this show that were alive the last time this country had a pandemic. We need to get it together and kind of get a grip of things and work together. This isn't about being mean, but I will say something too. There are folks out there that cannot wear a mask. They have hearing issues, for example. They're deaf, or they may have mental issues. And we need to be tolerant and nice to people. Whether you believe in a mask, whether you don't believe in a mask. We just need to be human beings. That's what Moscow is all about. This does not need to be a divisive thing. We're going to move forward with the town, and together we can win this thing. By the way, we're in this by ourselves, our community. Who else is going to help us other than us? Nobody. And so we have to stay with that, folks. So I'm ready for the next person.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for once again allowing citizen input on this issue. I really appreciate it.
Name, miss?
Oh, I'm sorry. Abigail Smith.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so on the city council website, according to the BioBot July 13th report date, which, by the way, I'm super thankful for that. I really appreciate that we are participating in that study, so thank you so much. And I was curious to know if there are updated numbers on that. So the last report was the 13th, which was mid-July, so I didn't know if we were doing that more or not. So just a question about that. Anyway, they estimate that our cases are probably around 1,800, which I thought was actually really good news, because that means that if we've only had 81 confirmed cases in the county, but estimated at such a high number, that means that over 1,700 people are possibly shedding the virus, but not exhibiting symptoms worth testing, and still no deaths. So that all seemed very positive to me, actually, especially as we're trying to figure out infection versus death rates. So I'd be really curious to know if there's updates on those numbers. So if someone could, I don't know if we were doing more.
Those numbers we get, we really don't know how accurate they are. We really don't.
Right. I just wondered if there was going to be another study.
The only thing we really know is that we have the virus here.
Right, exactly, which I assume everywhere, right?
I can address that.
Oh, okay, great.
We are working with the University of Idaho Department of Biology and Department of Engineering. So they'll be doing that testing. They're doing it right now. We'll do
Great.
some quality control things on it.
Okay.
But we expect that we'll have much greater frequency of testing once they get online and they get
The
their
waste of that
lab set
wastewater
up.
testing?
Yes.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so last time we were here, I introduced myself as Dr. Abigail Smith and apparently created an internet scandal, which I totally didn't expect. That was kind of hilarious to me. So just to clarify, I am not an MD. I'm a PhD with a degree in English, specifically in American literature, which means that I read stories. I get paid to read stories, which is kind of cool. And what I specifically read are America's stories, the American story. And my concern actually is, when I talk to my own children and to my students, is that like 25 years from now, 50, 100, that what we're going to read of the story of 2020 is that it's been a season and a period in our history of fear. We fear death, we fear illness, we fear others, we fear neighbors. As a friend said, we're creating a culture of fear and distrust among people who are normally open and very friendly. And this is why for me, what I feel is the danger of the mask mandate, that it makes our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers, our acquaintances, our family, even when we're masked, it makes those people that we're afraid of. And it's not each other that we should fear. I don't even think it's COVID that we should fear. As FDR said, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror which paralyzes us. That's a quote. Or as someone else profoundly said, a life lived in fear is a life half lived. And so the consequences, which we're just beginning to see, are horrific. In mid-July, the CDC director, Robert Redfield, said that suicides, this is a quote, suicides and drug overdoses have surpassed the death rate for COVID-19 among high school students. He goes on to argue that lockdowns and a lack of public schooling constitute a disproportionately negative impact on young people's mental health. According to the American Medical Association.
Yes, would you wrap it up, please?
Sure. More than 35 states have reported an increase in opioid-related mortality. A friend who's a pediatrician has been talking with middle school students who are considering suicide for the first time ever. So I feel like we've embraced fear. We're living half lives. Our pool's empty. Our businesses are closing. Our farmers market is sparse. Our library's barren. Our gatherings are limited. Our city's inhospitable. Fear is paralyzing us, and I just feel like it's time to stop being afraid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on up. I know there's going to be more out there. Come on up, David. I know who you are, but you're going to have to identify it yourself. This is Dr. David Pierce, by the way.
This is going to cover some things that I wanted to say earlier, but I think it's still important to go through what I've written here. My name is David Pierce, and I have a PhD in microbiology and worked in public health for 16 years before I came to Moscow. I do not want to be here. I should not be here. But it seems to me that I have no choice. I am concerned for the welfare of the citizens of Moscow. I have been spending a great deal of time finding and trying to digest the very large amount of information related to the coronavirus 19 pandemic. I would like to take this opportunity to share some of what I think I have learned. There is, and for some time has been, a multitude of opinions regarding how to react to the variety of information and disinformation available. I have tried to look at what I consider to be the best scientific information available. The problem is that scientific information is always changing. What was best information today may not be tomorrow. This is particularly true when scientific investigation on a topic is in its infancy. From the beginning of the pandemic, the best information from the CDC emphasized 4 things. Wash your hands frequently. Avoid close contact with others. Keep that 6-foot distance from others. Wear a mask and clean and disinfect things. In the beginning, the best information suggested that the masks were not necessary for the general public, and that created a real problem. The masks available at the time were N95 masks, which are used to prevent the intake of infectious particles. They're used to prevent you from becoming infected. They were, however, essential for medical personnel who were likely to be exposed to the virus. That view quickly changed when it was realized that a mask, any mask, could and would reduce the amount of virus introduced to the environment by an infected individual. This became increasingly important as additional studies showed that infection with the virus is rather unique. Furthermore, an individual can be shedding virus particles up to 2 days before they become symptomatic. And a significant proportion of infected individuals will never show or only show minor symptoms of the infection. In Idaho, recent data indicates that 18% of infected individuals are asymptomatic. Some of these individuals, now termed spreaders, are capable of releasing very large amounts of virus particles, resulting in a large number of new cases. Once these facts were established, the wearing of masks by all individuals, combined with social distancing, became an essential part of the mechanism to control the spread of the virus. Wearing a mask clearly reduces the likelihood of that an infected individual can infect another individual. Currently, there is now a suggestion that wearing a mask also benefits the wearer. There is some data suggesting that wearing a mask makes one less liable to become infected than others in a group who are not wearing masks. As of this morning, there were 82 cases of coronavirus detected in Latah County. On April 14th, there had been 4. On June 15th, there were 8. On June 30th, there were 20. On July 19th, there were 40. and today there are 82. It took from April 14th to June 15th, 62 days for the number of cases to double. Since then, the number of cases has doubled 3 additional times. It has taken about 14 days each time. In Idaho, 30% of those who tested positive for the coronavirus have been between 18 and 29. 17% have been between 30 and 39. 15% have been between 40 and 49. 12% have been between 50 and 59. And 15% were over 60. That's something that I think you need to think about. Most of the cases have been in the younger people. The opposite is not true of deaths. Most of the deaths have been in people over 70, and in fact, most of the deaths have really been in people over 80. Idaho is currently doing about 2,500 COVID tests a week. The number of tests from the North Central District, of which Blaylock County is a part, is minuscule. I couldn't even get a number out of the graph. It is unclear to me whether the tests being done at the Gritman Medical Center are included in the number of tests done in the district. It is also unclear what criteria currently are being used for allowing one to be tested. In the past, those criteria severely limited the ability for one to be tested.
David, could you wrap it up, please?
I'm trying.
Okay,
I'm just about there. Mayor Lambert ordered the mandatory wearing of masks in Moscow for social distancing, where social distancing could not be maintained in early July. Since then, most people appear to be wearing masks when and where they would be required. There was an article in the Moscow Daily News last week about the general compliance with the ordinance. However, there have been and are circumstances when the Moscow Police Department has received complaints. Some have been complaints regarding specific businesses. Only a few businesses have been complained about more than once. There have also been complaints about social gatherings of individuals without masks. There were multiple complaints regarding the sports activities this past weekend. Thank you, Mayor Lambert, for shutting that down. Thank you, citizens of Moscow, for making city officials aware of that situation. In my opinion, wearing masks and maintaining social distancing will continue to be of the utmost importance to the citizens of Moscow. In 2 weeks, Moscow will face the ultimate challenge when students return to Moscow. Wearing masks, maintaining social distancing, testing and contact tracing will become even more important. But wearing a mask is the single most important thing any individual could do to protect themselves and the community.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Kyra Mutar, and I reside at 2533 White Avenue.
Excuse me, could you spell that, please?
Kyra Mutar, K-Y-R-A-N-M-U-T-A-R-T. Currently, I am a senior at Logos Online School. After many hours of research and reading about COVID-19, I have found that the CDC recommended that healthy people not wear masks. The exact quote being, CDC does not recommend that people who are healthy wear a mask to protect themselves from respiratory diseases. So my real question to you is, how long is this nonsense going to go on? How long are we going to be afraid of a virus that has a 100% recovery rate in Moscow? As I told you before, I am a senior that has invested over 15 years into high school athletics, and it'd be a shame to miss out on those athletics my senior year. Thank you for your service to the great city of Moscow.
I will make a statement about the CDC. All I have heard from the CDC is wear masks. That's all I've read for the last 3.5 months, 4 months maybe. So, somebody else want to come up? Please come up.
There's a guy back there behind the.
Okay, all right, come on up.
This isn't about a mask. I had to wait in line. So is this a?
Well, this is just about this.
Okay, so is there going to be time to comment later about
About what?
the police?
About the police?
Yeah. This is okay. My name is Herman Adana. In the past month, I've interacted with Moscow police officers 4 times. I remember Officer Bragg, and I believe his name is Officer Warner. They stopped me. Very professional in their conduct toward me and the issue of a citation. And then this past week, at like 3:30 in the morning, I don't know his last name, but his first name is Casey, Officer Casey. The situation in which we interacted could have gotten and escalated crazy. It could have been, there was a report of a person with a weapon, and so they were looking for him. And they just so happened to stop by me. I just want you, and maybe you want to go to him personally, but in that interaction, he was the most professional person and de-escalated the situation in the most professional manner because it was so crazy what was happening. And those officers need to be commended on the way they conducted themselves in interaction with a citizen. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Herman.
That's awesome.
Somebody wants to get up and talk, I'm gonna cut it off pretty soon if we don't, if somebody else wants to speak, or I'm gonna shut it off. You come right up here to the podium and tell us who you are. You were here several weeks back, I remember you, so. Well, I remember you from his Safeway days back in the time you wanted to shop. Remember that, dear? So but you still gotta tell everybody else who you are, because I know who you are.
Okay, my name is Heidi Scheibe.
Okay.
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 All right. I have been communicating with Brandy, so she's been getting some of my extra facts. And I appreciate all of your hearts that you want to protect us. And I know you guys have a lot of facts, and so do I, and so do all the people who have spoken. But our facts seem to be at odds, suggesting that there are 2 different groups, 2 news groups, 2 groups of doctors, 2 groups setting forth differing perspectives. However, both can't be right. One, this flu will get out of control, it'll overrun our hospitals, and masks will help stop it. Or this flu is giving us herd immunity status as we get out and live, as masks don't help that much and may hurt. Something is up. But I know you guys know these proven facts. We are still at 98% recovery, 99% under 60 years old in the United States, 100% in Moscow recovery. Only 81 cases, 1 maybe hospitalization or none. I'm not sure. Maybe there's more. Correct me if I'm wrong. No deaths. The CDC said the death rate has so plummeted that we are no longer even in an epidemic, let alone a pandemic. The week ending April 21st, there were 6,085 85 years and plus, and in July, per week, under 500 with all ages. That's the death rate, which plummeted. There's a 400% increase in tests given across the country, so no wonder our cases are rising all over the United States and here. Dr. Birx from the Washington Post says she questions 25% of the CDC deaths. The fatality rate is for under 70 is 0.04%. That's from Dr. Scott Atlas from Stanford. I know you guys have heard of the rampant misreporting of hospital cases that rose a lot in Texas, Florida, and Arizona. But for instance, in Texas, 80% came in the hospital for other things, and only 20% were solely COVID. Never before in our country's history have we isolated healthy people. And the Idaho Code 1C56-10601 says isolation means separated of infected persons or suspected to be infected. I know you guys don't want to be unfounded or have irrational fears to govern our town and behaviors. I know you don't want to stress families out, businesses of Moscow financially stressing them out, and I know you don't want to deprive us of the joys of life, weddings, concerts, swimming, movies, sports, and etc. But it is happening. And as a matter of fact, my friend Eric told me, who is a beloved Moscow musician, that 90% of his work has been canceled this year, and it could end his career. We are not just physical beings. We are created mental, physical, social, economic, and spiritual beings by God Almighty. That is why we need a balance here, you guys. Please don't reinstate the mask mandate. And just to end on a personal note, my grandson, I asked him the other day what he was feeling about the pool, not being able to go. And he said, Nina, he said, it doesn't even seem like summer. He said, usually we'd get to go swimming and have so much fun at the pool, and then we'd do that every day, and then we'd almost be ready for school to start, and we'd feel good about it. But he said, now, we're not going to feel that way because we feel like we haven't even had summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll say something. First off, what we have here is a pandemic. It is not a flu. I know that because that's what the CDC has told us. I know that because that's what our Surgeon General has told us. Our leading epidemiologists, and there's all kinds of articles out there that are discrediting epidemiologists, healthcare workers, county and state health departments, and I got to tell you, we're following science. David Pierce spoke earlier about some of the science, and that's exactly some of the things that we follow. Do you really believe that we would be doing this just to do it? Do you really believe, or anybody believe, that we're doing something to try to scare people? Or, here we are, it's almost 9:35, discussing this sort of thing. I take it very serious about all of our citizens, the people that believe it, the people that don't believe it. Our businesses, if you believe that our businesses will not fail if we turn this loose, I strongly disagree with that, and I'll tell you why, folks. We need people to be able to feel safe to shop, to feel safe to where they're going. Like I said earlier, I don't particularly like wearing a mask. I have for almost 3 months now. I'm going to continue to. This thing's behind us, and nobody in this room has lived through a pandemic. No one here in the United States. Let's just always remember that. And so how do we know? We really don't know. Heidi, you may not know. 5 years from now, it may be completely different. Maybe I don't, but we've got to do the best that we possibly can. And my concern is for the citizens of this town, the businesses of this town, this fine university, and that also includes New St. Andrews College, by the way. Because we're all in this together. And I can tell you something else. The only folks that are in this fight for us is us here in Moscow. Don't ever forget it. I don't ever want to overwhelm our health departments. I don't ever want to overwhelm the medical fields. And so we're doing the best we can with what we got to work with. Okay. I'm ready to listen to someone else.
Victoria Seaver, 121 North of Moscow. I've spoken before. I'll keep it short. Masks are a very small, simple precaution, a mighty precaution. You don't stop preventative measures when the numbers are climbing, so it only makes sense to keep the mask mandate, period.
Thank you, Victoria. Oh, by the way, thank you for cleaning it. I think you're the first one out of about the last 7. So, just saying. Oh, by the way, everybody, I've had people ask me if I shave daily, and I still do, so I just thought, for the record, I'd show that, and I brush my teeth and do all my other things that I should. And yes, I smile a lot under the mask, with it or without it. Just thought I'd disclose that, okay. Hey, you know what, folks, we have to relax a little bit and have a little fun with what we do. This is serious stuff we're talking about. There's no doubt about it, and don't think that the mayor, Bill Lambert's making a joke of this, but I think that sometimes we have to just step back a little bit, take a couple of deep breaths and say, what are we doing for our neighbors, for our friends, for the people we love, for the people we don't even care about? And if you've got that sort of a situation or relationship, we're doing this for us here in Moscow, ladies and gentlemen, all of us, together. We're going to make it happen. And guess what? We're going to win it. And someday this is going to be behind us. And nobody in this room will be more happier when baseball fields can open up, soccer fields can open up, the pool is full of people, we've got downtown block parties, we've got vandal block parties, we have an art walk, we've got homecoming parades, and my golf tournament that I love to have that we canceled this year, of course. When we can do things like that as a community and get together, and we need to work together as a community. Don't ever lose sight of that. And so, well, with that, come on up. I know somebody else. I'm going to listen to a few more, and then we're going to deliberate to the council.
Good evening again, Brandon Schreiner again. Part of the letter I didn't get to was, I just wanted to thank you for shutting us down. Which sounds super weird, but you gave us a chance to run the tournament, and when it got safe, you did what was best for the community. I don't think it was because of all the people calling the police and emailing and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure you guys were aware it was going to happen. So I think you guys coming out to the field and seeing it for yourself is why you shut it down. So I thought it was a responsible act, and whether or not you extend the mask mandate or what, I completely disagree with the fear aspect of it. I wear the mask because I care about you, and I think that's what our symbol should be. I think we can look at 2020 as we cared about each other. That's all.
Thank you, Brandon. And by the way, I'm kind of a funny guy that way. I remember one time when I was on P&Z, we had this area that we were zoning in for some new development stuff, and so what did I do? I was new on the P&Z, this is about 2 decades ago, so it was in March, I get my boots on, took my big black lab with me and tromping out in the muck to see what this looked like. And so we were having our hearing, so I brought this up, and holy smokes, the city attorney at that time about had heart failure, said, because it was a quasi-judicial event and he says, who did you talk to? I said, the only person or the only thing I talked to was my dog, and he's not going to tell anybody else. But I had to see for myself what it looked like, and that's no different, Brandon, than going down to the fields. And I appreciate what you guys did. The thing of it, it's something that was an uncontrollable event to happen, and so we move forward, and we'll get by it. Hey, that's past history. Let's move forward, folks. Let's move forward. And I keep saying this is about a town, this is about us, this is about us all working together. And, holy smokes, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. So, somebody else wants to come up, I'd be more than happy to listen to a few more folks, and then we'll turn it over to council.
Good evening. My name is Greg Schisler. I'm just a concerned citizen, and I was waiting in line, and I decided to just do a small calculation on my phone. As far as I understand, the population of Moscow is about 20,000. The number of cases that we have was up to 82. That leads us with an infection rate of 0.4%. So for 0.4% of the population, we all need to wear face coverings.
Isn't that fantastic?
No.
No, it's a fantastic number.
Yes, so if
What do
it's
you
that
want,
low,
10%?
why do we need,
Well, that's the point of the masks. How do we know that we haven't kept it from being 2% or 5% or 8%? We don't know that. We're not, look at Kootenai County, look at Coeur d'Alene. All hell broke loose, it exploded up there, they got 2,000 cases. And it's because nobody took control of it until their medical fields were overswamped, Kootenai Medical was maxed out, and they've had serious problems. And what we're doing right here is we're trying to make sure we can keep it the best we can. And the reason for that is to keep our businesses going, to be able to open schools, to be able to do different functions and work together. We don't do that, and we have this infection rate that could very possibly hit. Why would Coeur d'Alene be different than us? And that could happen.
but you're referring to just an infection rate. You're not actually referring to either hospitalizations or deaths.
Well, the hospitalization up there, and they have had deaths up there, by the way, their hospitalization up there is overwhelming for Kootenai Medical. So,
Well, we're not
I'm not gonna
governing Kootenai
debate and
Medical.
argue that with you, you just ask on the percentage, that's why I said it was great. It's a great percentage to have, and I hope we can keep that percentage down.
But that percentage hasn't either increased or decreased due to mask wearing.
How do you know that?
How do you know it has?
I don't.
Why do I have to prove my
Neither-
negative? and
Neither do
don't?
you, so it's not hurting a thing to do it, is it?
Yes, it is hurting a
No,
lot of
no, we're
things.
not, I'm not gonna debate with you on this, son. I'm just telling you. You wanted some facts, and I just gave them to you, so.
Well, I gave you a fact, and I'm slightly curious as to why we're holding a debate, because you guys seem to have all had your minds made up
Well,
beforehand.
no, the council
and-
hasn't deliberated on this. I said earlier, I made a comment that we talked about the CDC. We've had people in here tell us the CDC has recommended not wearing masks, and that's absolutely baloney. That's not true. That's one of the things. We're following the science of it. We're trying to follow the science of it the best we can.
You're following the science
Not
you
an
wanna follow.
epidemiologist, you're not one. So you're not the Surgeon General, you're not Dr. Redfield from the CDC, you're not Dr. Fauci. And so with that, we try to stay with what we've got, what makes sense to us. And so
Have you seen any of the reports from Japan?
I don't, what I study and focus is just exactly what I said. The CDC, our leading national epidemiologists, our Surgeon General, the previous Surgeon General, by the way, our county and state health epidemiologists and workers, and our medical field, the hospital itself. That's where we get it. And that's all this other stuff. You can go on the net, you can go on Facebook, and you can see all kinds of different reports from here to Sweden, so on and so forth. And I don't want to pay a bit of attention to any of it, because guess what? Here in America, we got more cases than anywhere else in the world. We got 25% of the cases, and we got 4% of the population, right? 4.5%. Well, that ought to tell somebody something. It's just not a made-up number. So there.
There are a whole lot of made-up numbers, though.
With that, sir, I'm gonna let you sit down and somebody else can talk. Thank you. Now, I don't mean to be short with anybody, but look, I'm not gonna get in a debate with talking. We've said, I don't know how many times about the science of it. That's what we're following, folks. That's what we're sticking with. And our governor, and like I said earlier, it'd be great if he'd just went ahead and put a mandate in so local governments wouldn't have to go through this and pound away on them. All we had to do is follow it. And we'd do something simple by wearing a mask. Wash your hands, social distancing. Come on up, miss, if you want.
I might just say too, if you were thinking Japan was doing something well right now, you might want to check the news from that country that came out just today.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. My name's Laura Hannon. That's Hannon. I just wanted to give a really brief statement in support of the mandate and say thank you so much for listening to the science and the CDC. This is a new virus, as it was mentioned. We're learning more every day, and we're learning how our country is going to cope with it every day. And it's important that we adapt as we learn about those changes. This year wasn't fun for anyone. The summer hasn't been great for anyone. But that's because we're all trying to get through this and have better days ahead. My sister's wedding was canceled, my graduation was canceled, and it was so worth it to keep my family members safe, to keep my peers safe, and to keep me safe as well. U of I is still planning to hold in-person classes, so in about 2 weeks we're going to have a huge influx of people coming into Moscow from all over the country, and a lot from southern Idaho and northern Idaho where there are more cases. That being said, I love Gritman and we have great healthcare here, but we're not equipped to handle a high amount of severe COVID cases. So I really hope that the council will take that into consideration as they consider the mandate. The initial mandate was made for a reason, and our numbers have only gone up, so I really encourage you to pass the extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Anybody else wants to talk before I cut it off and turn it over to council here? Come on up. Hello, young man, how are you?
Tell the mayor how you are.
Good.
Okay, how about your name? What's your name, son?
Will.
Oh, Will, I'm Bill. Is this your dad with you?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let him introduce himself then.
Thank you. My name's Caleb Trotter. I live in Moscow. Wanted to start out just by saying how thankful me and my family are for you, Mr. Mayor, and for the council. Thankful for your honest consideration in these matters. We're very thankful for the Moscow Police Department. Their kindness, their courtesy, their professionalism have been very evident throughout all of this process. We've been very, very thankful for it. My son's soccer camp was visited multiple times by the police. It was not this gentleman's event, and they were called by concerned citizens who felt that my son and his friends playing soccer without masks and their mothers occasionally talking to one another about the children who were running around constituted a public health emergency. I think that may be the thing that we need to take into consideration as a city, what this is doing to our public discourse, where now the primary interaction I have with my neighbors is wondering if they're going to call the police department on me when my kids play outside. Mr. Mayor, 5 weeks ago you said that if everyone wore a mask for 6 weeks, this thing could just go away.
In this country.
In this country. I guess how close are we, sir? Because right now the state of emergency that we are under does not appear to describe what's going on with only 82 cases in a town of 20,000 people. My question for you would be, what does constitute a state of emergency that would merit the suspension of our liberties in the way that you have suspended them? I don't deny your power to do it if there is a true state of emergency. That's why you're the mayor, and I'm very grateful for you being the mayor. My question is, does this constitute it? Because I fail to see any evidence that it is such.
Well, all I can tell you is that I've studied pandemics and heard about them for 40 years, my career, and every single one of them was a false alarm until this one came along. And I took this one very seriously. And I don't know what the count is, but it's right around 160,000 people dead in America now, and what, 4.8 million people infected with this thing. That, my friend, is an emergency in my view. And look if we do this right, I'm happy that we only have 82 cases. I mean, man, I can imagine this town hall being down here if we had 1,082 cases. It'd be a completely different story about why in the world didn't you guys do this sooner? And so we're winging through this the best we possibly can. We're using the science to do that. We don't want to take anybody's freedoms or rights away from them. And by wearing a mask, in my view, is an easy thing to do. If that makes people feel comfortable to shop somewhere and go into businesses and do commerce, that's terrific, because we have heard hundreds and hundreds of people sending us emails telling us they will not go into a business that does not practice these kind of practices. And so with that being said, I've said this all along, I care very deeply about all of our citizens, I care very deeply about all of our businesses, I care deeply about the University of Idaho, because it's going to be us in this town making it happen for us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it very much.
And so that is my view, the emergency, sir.
I understand. I would respectfully ask that you leave it in charge of the businesses to see what is best for their business, because as you say.
Most businesses have addressed that with us, Caleb, and told us that. So I thank you for your input, and
thank you for your time.
And I thank you, Will, as well, being up here with your dad, son. Okay, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9:51, and so I am going to, we got somebody else that wants to talk? Okay, come on up. We'll do one more and then I'll cut it off, because we've been doing this for about an hour. And I got a few comments. Please state your name, sir.
My name is Joel Boxtruck. This is my first time ever doing this, so.
How do you spell that, sir? Your last name?
BOCKSTRUCK. So, I finally got the courage to come up and do this first time ever.
Yeah, welcome. I'm glad to hear.
I sat outside not even knowing if I wanted to do it, but I thought, why not speak my mind and see what happens. So pretty much I am here just regarding the mask mandate that is in place. So I am a proud gun owner and supporter of the Second Amendment. Making it mandatory for citizens to wear masks or face coverings in public, in my opinion, is unconstitutional because it violates my individual liberties and freedom. The individual state and local government mask orders are allowing government overreach by forcing citizens to wear something on their body, buy something they may not be able to afford, be denied service to purchase essential items such as food without a mask on, and cause Second Amendment rights to be infringed upon because concealed carry permit holders are not allowed to conceal a weapon and have their face covered at the same time. As a member of the society and a citizen of the United States, I believe we should be concerned about any order where any level of government, whether it be state, local, or federal, is dictating that we are required to wear a mask on our bodies. We should be alarmed that government is forcing us to purchase anything that we would need to access food or other essential items without wearing a mask. Everyone has the right to voluntarily wear a mask, but forcing someone to wear a mask under the fear of a criminal offense is unconstitutional. Finally, as a gun owner with a concealed carry permit, we should be distressed because wearing a mask violates the law associated with carrying a legal firearm. If you choose to carry a gun with a mask on, you can be arrested, or you could be denied your right to carry your concealed weapon in approved locations that require a mask. Additionally, the masks themselves in my opinion, do very little to prevent an airborne virus infection, especially since they are not fitted to each person's face or made of protective materials. And I'm not talking about like N95s I do wear when I gripman. Even the CDC recommends that healthy people should only wear masks if they are taking care of a person with COVID-19. Wearing a mask is also a threat to you since it reduces your oxygen levels, which could put strain into your immune system. The wearing of masks is therefore more of a political symbol for the media to continue to frighten and dehumanize the public. During the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been many unconstitutional orders that have been enacted, but the face mask order in several state and local governments is very personal since it involves infringing on your personal body space. It is important that, in my opinion, that elected officials uphold their oaths to ensure that our individual freedoms will remain protected at all times, even during a crisis. So my question to you is, in regarding to all this, what is your plan or your idea when it comes to my right to the Second Amendment, to where I can't walk throughout Moscow or walk into a business that allows them with a firearm if I have to wear a mask?
Well, I'm very much in favor of the Second Amendment, but with that being said, and I'm not going to get in a debate about that because I'm a gun owner myself, okay? I also believe in freedom of speech. That's why you're getting a chance to talk and tell us what you think. So, with that being said, like I said earlier, and I've said it numerous times, you might not have been here, we're following the science of this thing. And that's the only thing we're doing. And we're doing it because we want to protect our citizens, we want to protect our businesses. Clearly, we want to protect our schools or universities here, so we're moving forward with that. Thank you for, Joe, for getting the courage to come in and talking to us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. Like I said, this wasn't a public hearing to start with, but it was an action. We've been at it for about an hour, and one of the things I will say, the last 2 days, yesterday and today, I have received 438 emails, and of course there were several hundred before that, but out of this, I kept track of them, 318 very much in favor of the mask, 120 opposed. So there you have it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to council.
I'll start.
Okay, Brandy.
Since you led with numbers, I'm going to expand on those numbers.
Okay.
So I think the council got it even worse than you did, Mayor, because I counted 704 emails.
The last 2 days?
In the last week.
Okay, well, I've had it probably right in the ballpark.
Okay, well,
this is just yesterday and today.
We can argue this out later, who got more. But in any event, these 704, and that was up until about an hour before this meeting, 568 were in support of this being extended. 136 were opposed. So, since you brought up the numbers, I'm sharing mine as well. And I want to say thank you to everybody, no matter what your view was, for taking the time to write to us. Most of the emails were, as you all know, respectful and shared information and were constructive in some way. There were a segment of them that were hostile and rude and name-calling and disrespectful. And the reason I want to bring that up is I think that's just part of the deal. We can take it. We're going to be okay. But I agree with what the mayor said. We need to not treat each other that way out there. This should not be a divisive issue, even if we disagree, just like other issues in our community. That's not an excuse to be aggressive, hostile, name-called. That's not going to help us get through something that's impacting all of us in negative ways. We're all having not the summer we wanted to have. It's affecting all of us, and that kind of behavior from either side is really disappointing and doesn't help to further our cause for anyone. So I just implore everyone on both sides to please just be more civil and respectful of each other. I wish there was a perfect solution to make this all end, but in the absence of that, because there's not, we have to continue to do the best that we can with the information that we have to support our community. Social distancing and wearing face coverings are two of the most agreed upon means that we have to slow the rate of the spread of this virus, so we can keep our businesses open and prevent our healthcare system from becoming overrun. I am happy we only have 82 cases, and I'm thankful that you acted proactively. Waiting for what some people think is an emergency is what we've seen happen in other communities. And it is very difficult to rewind once that happens. Ask those communities, those hospitals, those families. Once it's too late, it's too late. Just today, the Idaho Statesman reported that the Idaho chapter of the American College of Physicians, signed by more than 70 physicians from around the state, including rural areas, and the Idaho Academy of Family Physicians, sent letters calling on Governor Brad Little and his COVID-19 task force to issue a statewide mask mandate. That was today. In mid-July, I'm reading from this, as you can see, the Journal of the American Medical Association reported that the, quote, CDC reviewed the latest science and affirms that cloth face coverings are a critical tool in the fight against COVID-19, particularly when they're used universally within a community. All Americans have a responsibility to protect themselves, their families, and their communities. And that's the end of the quote. We know that masks will not eliminate the transmission of COVID, but we also know that they will slow the spread of the virus. Recent models show that if just 80% of people wear masks that are only 60% effective, which cloth masks easily are at least that effective, the rate of transmission and of new infections will decline. We are at a very critical time right now. Big outbreaks are predicted in college towns. In the next 2 weeks, as many have mentioned, we'll have thousands of students arriving from identified red zones, Ada, Canyon, Kootenai counties, and out of state. This is not the time to let our guard down by eliminating one of the only effective measures we know of to slow the spread of the virus. It's not only the health of our citizens, but the health of our economy that we need to consider. There is a direct relationship between rising COVID-19 cases and the economy shrinking. And the more we can do to slow this spread in Moscow, the better our economy and businesses will fare. As I think the mayor mentioned, we've received countless emails from consumers in and outside of city limits telling us they feel safe shopping in Moscow now due to the mask mandate, and from business owners reporting that the mandate has helped their businesses and their workers and has reduced some of the hostility that was present prior to the mandate. I'm an effective business owner myself, and we need every customer we can get. And if masks are making people feel more comfortable, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of this community and outside of the community, we need that consumer confidence if we really want to keep things open. And of course, we all want things to stay open. We want kids back in school. We want birthday parties and celebrations and weddings. None of us, I don't think, really want to wear masks. We want our businesses to stay open. What we do over these next few weeks will have a big impact on if we can continue to progress back towards normalcy, or if we're forced to take a step backwards and draw this out even longer. This isn't going away anytime soon. We've heard from clergy, from multiple churches in Moscow, business owners, consumers, hairdressers, grocery store workers, restaurant, retail business workers, teachers, professors at our colleges here, EMTs, doctors, nurses, several people who themselves have contracted COVID. And the majority, as was mentioned, are in support of this extension. I think this is the right thing to do for the health and economy of Moscow, and everyone needs to remember this is temporary. That's the whole reason we want to do this, so that that temporary is shorter and not longer. I know it's hard, but if we really want to get through this as quickly as possible, masks right now are one of the only tools that we have.
Art.
Yeah, I'll take my 3 minutes, I guess. These are kind of unprecedented times. We've never dealt with anything like this before because it's a new virus. There's no human resistance. And until we get a vaccine, it's going to be with us. And even after a vaccine, it's still going to go on because no vaccine is ever 100% effective. Public health shouldn't be a political issue, even though it seems to have made the transition into that. And you could tell that because this is the most emails I have ever seen pop into the city account. Huge numbers of them. I read them all, and it took a lot of time. But I think relative to Moscow, our early shutdown really helped. And now that we've gotten to, stage 4 in Idaho with the reopening of Boise bars, for example, we've started down a whole nother path again to a second wave. And really, right now, all we've got is masking and social distancing. They're the only tools we have to kind of prevent the spread or limit the spread at the moment. And as Dr. Pierce pointed out, masks are about protecting others and not your own self. Masks aren't perfect, especially the ones we've all got on in here, but they do trap out respiratory droplets to which the virus adheres. They aren't going to stop a virus from going in, but it's most likely to stop a lot of them from going out. So people who are asymptomatic or even people who are careless and symptomatic can help slow that spread. I don't think they're an infringement on personal freedom. They're annoying as all get out. I don't like this thing at all. But impinging on one's constitutional rights, I don't think so, because your rights come to a halt where somebody else's rights begin, and their right to be free from disease trumps your right not to be wearing a mask, I think. Social impacts ensue in terms of medical costs. If you get COVID, even if you survive, it's been said that a lot of people survive, but you've still gone to the hospital. You've absorbed medical capacity, and you didn't pay for it all yourself. Everybody else paid for it with their insurance rates or society floating your bill itself. So there are social costs to having it, even if you don't perish in the process. Masks aren't likely to create a social rift if everybody is wearing them. It's when people, some wear, some don't, that's when the tension begins. And I think an ordinance like this sets an example for our incoming students that if the whole town is wearing a mask, you should too. And that's the example we want to set here, rather than let people come in and sort of decide on their own whether they want to be masked or not. As has been pointed out by Brandy, masks provide confidence in shopping. Some people don't go to businesses where masking isn't enforced. One of the very big difficulties is social distancing in restaurants, and the loss of income for restaurants is very, very real. And the city has tried to help with that by providing access to the city right-of-way to enhance customer space as long as distance is maintained. I think the total reported cases are not necessarily due to just more testing. There's just plain more testing or more cases occurring. And I think our BioBot tests back that up. They're showing a steady increase in viral RNA in the sewer system. The numbers don't track exactly, but the trends do track very closely. And we do have low death rates here. And I think that's because we've used masks as a community since the very beginning. Using our low rates as excuse not to mask up is exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. Our success in masking has led to those low rates. So I think our efforts at education and our collegial approach may not have been sufficient. I think it's time that we go into issuing warnings and subsequently issuing citations, which I know the police won't be very happy about doing, but I think that just like closing down the soccer games and the ball fields, it's a necessary step. If people won't do it themselves, we have to help, perhaps with a more decisive set of measures. So overall, I think it needs to be a mandate, not just a recommendation. Recommendations give lots of loopholes that you can drive a truck through, and uniformity in adherence to masking leads to less social stress and a better outcome for all of us. I don't want to fall into like the Monty Python skit where they're talking to the London Bobby who says, stop, or I'll say stop again. It's not enough anymore. We've gone through that, and it's time to really get serious about this whole business and prevent the spread of COVID, at least in this town, if not others.
Thank you, Arthur. And who else?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go into great detail because I will say I wholeheartedly agree with what Brandy and with what Art said, and including the enforcement part. One perspective I just want to throw out that might be a little different. One of my very favorite pastimes is doing research on local history. And I've done a lot of local history here in Moscow over the years. It's a passion of mine. And I've had the chance before this year, just on a whim, last year or the year before, I started researching the Spanish flu because I read something interesting about Carol Ryby-Brink, and it led me down a rabbit hole. Turns out it was a pretty good rabbit hole to go down. And I can say here in Moscow, when the Spanish flu hit, it was awful. And I listened to many oral histories, and I read the transcripts of many oral histories. I looked at the old Gem of the Mountain yearbooks and read what was happening at the University of Idaho. I read about Dr. Adair, who was, I can't tell you his title at the time, but it was much like the public health official, and how exhausted he was because he had to shut everything down, and he got very little support. He shut things down over Thanksgiving, and people were furious because they wanted to go share Thanksgiving time with their families, and he made people quarantine. I'm thankful we have the Kenworthy Theater because Milton Kenworthy had a fit, and I'm surprised he didn't just blow the whole thing up. He was so angry that he could not show his movies for a week. And then I went on and I read more about the destruction that it created, because when you do an oral history, typically you're interviewing someone who has lived a long time and they're remembering what happened. And every time someone brought up the question of the Spanish flu, they were devastated because everyone at that time knew someone who had passed away. And they said World War I was awful, but what really hurt was the Spanish flu. And they would go into stories about how their loved ones and how their neighbors just died or disappeared. And they would find neighbors in their homes decomposed because no one knew what happened, because they didn't have the same sort of transportation we have. It's scary when history repeats itself, and I'm thankful that it's taken a little over 100 years for it to repeat itself. It was an enlightening rabbit hole to go down. It was scary, and I never thought it would lead to this. And so I absolutely believe the science. I absolutely believe we need to be wearing masks. I absolutely believe we need to work with our citizens and have compassion and to work together. I've so appreciated the emails, and like Brandy said, there were a few hostile ones. For and against, I enjoyed the interactions with people, and it's hard to not make everybody happy. You don't come in here not wanting to make things better and make everyone happy. That's not going to happen. But I want to follow the science. I'm going to wear the mask. I'm not going to say I want to, but I'm going to. I'm thankful I have the opportunity, and I'm thankful I live in a place where we have been proactive and where, yes, rates are low. I love that people are like, well, the death rate isn't high, so why are we wearing it? Well, right there, just like the mayor said earlier, that's why we're wearing them, because we want to keep this down. We want to continue to live and to grow and to thrive. And I think wearing a mask is one thing we can do. We don't have a lot of things we can do, but that is one thing we can do, and I will do it, and I will vote for it, and I'm thankful to be here, and I hope that we can all figure out how to get along while wearing our masks, and that we can, years from now, look back on this and not have those tragic stories like I read about where people died or were left all alone in their homes and decomposed because no one knew where they were, and that the town shut down and almost died because of a flu epidemic. I believe this is worse, and I believe we can do better. Thank you.
Maureen.
I appreciate what everybody has said, and I'm not here to really argue science. What I'm here to say is that I too follow the CDC. I follow Gritman. My daughter's an epidemiologist. Her partner is an ER doc. I get calls from Gritman when our numbers go up and they're terrified. I have to tell you, my daughter's wedding got canceled because of this thing. I understand the impact of it. They can't come visit because he's an ER doc and he has to spend 2 weeks quarantined because we are a red state. I know the implications of all of what's going on here. I can be telling you it is true, and it's really painful. And I say I want it to end. And the only way I think we're going to get this thing ended is if, in fact, we start wearing masks and we start doing social distancing. Do I miss community? Do I miss my kids? The answer is, oh, yes, I do. And don't we all sitting here? But the answer is, I don't want to find myself canceling the wedding again next summer because we couldn't get it together this summer. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that we take whatever actions we need. And if you don't believe it, at some point the answer is, so what? If you don't think our science is solid, put a little piece of mask on your face, because what it will do is it will, in fact, help a whole lot of people. And if it doesn't, what is the harm? Everybody's doing it. So my own sense is the fact that we're looking at this, I also am glad that we don't have any deaths here. I personally am horrified at 82 people here. I tell you, we had so few, and all of a sudden we're exponentially growing in numbers, and I'm not going to give you those numbers.
Thank you, Gina.
So, I've never received 704 emails in 3 days in my life, and I'm old. And so I will admit that as it started, I kind of felt like I was in a flood or something, and then by Sunday morning, I was scared and shaking when I was picking my phone up, because I was reading words that were largely in support. You know, Brandy shared with us that there was a good majority that are in favor. But what bothered me more was the negativity that was expressed in some of the emails. I understand. We're all kind of scared, and some of us feel very violated by this, right or wrong. I understand that sometimes the nearest target does get to be the whipping post at times. I will get through this. We will all be okay. I will drink more bourbon. I will be fine. But I want to ask us as a community, Brandon, you rocked it earlier when you said we need to wear these masks because we care. And I want us to rise above the anger at what we think is a constitutional infringement and be the community that I know we are. Rise above your anger at a mask mandate. Rise above it, and don't let it be an excuse for bad behavior. This is not a religious issue. This is not a political issue. This isn't a girl-boy issue. Just understand it as what it is. We are helping us all make it through this pandemic. I'm in favor of it. I probably am not going to answer all 704 emails in my lifetime, but know that it matters to me that everybody had a chance to vent and or give me their thoughts. Thank you.
And we haven't heard from you on this.
I mean, what else is there to add? I did read all of them. Didn't have a chance to reply to them all, but it is overwhelming, not in the sense that too many to get to or anything to that effect. But for me, it was the diversity of people that wanted to comment and support. And I especially wanted to point that out. I mean, it was people from the faith community, business owners, as Brandy mentioned, people who have had it. Just a lot of different reasons for why people are in support and see this as a public health crisis and public health steps to help mitigate it. And, I love local government. A lot of the times it's really boring what we do. It's lot line adjustments, it's potholes. And I love it because we don't have the level of divisiveness that you see at the national or even the state level. And I have tried to reiterate in my communication to citizens that I don't see this as a political issue, as you all have iterated as well. I would hope that we can, move past that and to speak to kind of that question of freedom too. The way that I see it, the sooner that we get past this and make these sacrifices together, the sooner we can get back to living and enjoying all of the freedoms that we enjoyed before this became an issue in our community and before we started seeing a spike in cases and community spread and all of the reasons that are driving these decisions from that science data-driven perspective. And so I'll comment too that I wasn't bothered by, I think, the rudeness, if you will, of some of the emails that come to us. I think that's kind of part of the job, as was mentioned. But I was alarmed to hear that people are harassing one another as much as they are over this decision. That to me is really concerning because as many of the citizens wrote in, I mean, this is a wonderful place to live because we are a small town with a lot of big town amenities. And a big part of that, I think, is the kind of the charm, the friendliness, the welcoming vibe. And so to hear that people are experiencing that on both sides, to me, is really disappointing. I hope that with this, I'm in support of the continuation of the mandate. I hope that we can kind of overcome those cultural issues and try to get back to things, whatever normal looks like after this as soon as possible. So I'm in support. I appreciate all of the people that emailed and all the people that came tonight to share their opinions. Thank you. And I look forward to voting for an extension.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, well, we've heard from all counselors, so.
Well, I move that we adopt the resolution extending the amended Public Health Emergency Order 20-03 until October 6, 2020, and adopting a definition of face covering as well.
Second.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I'll give it to Maureen. Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Maureen to adopt the resolution extending the amended Public Health Emergency Order 20-03 until October 6, 2020, and adopting a definition of face covering.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on that quickly?
If you wish.
I don't know what our definition of face covering has included. I'm for it, for sure. Will that also include like a face shield? Is it a cloth that's thick? I can just hear the questions coming up in the emails. What is the definition of that face covering? And so, is that what you read earlier, Gary?
Yes.
And does that include a face shield? I've had that question before.
Gary, were you gonna define that in your report?
It is defined in the resolution.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read it, I guess.
Yeah.
You didn't see it in the resolution?
I did, but I've read a lot. I did read and answered almost all those emails, so I'm a little behind, I guess.
Well, we had hundreds of emails, there's no doubt.
It says, face covering is defined as any material that securely covers the nose and mouth, creating a barrier to help prevent respiratory droplets from traveling in the air. Face coverings may be made of a variety of materials, including but not limited to cotton, silk, linen, flax, wool, ramie, denim, polyester, or a combination of materials or paper.
Thank you, Gary, that helps a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Field work.
Okay, well, with that, I'll start the roll, Ann, with you.
Aye.
Maureen.
Aye.
Art.
Aye.
Brandy.
Aye.
Gina.
Aye.
And Sandra.
Aye.
Okay, an amendment will go through until October 6th. Thank you, everybody, for participating in all the different emails. We spent hours and hours and hours sifting through that, and we had great involvement in the community, which is wonderful. With that, I'm going to move on to item number 9, live entertainment and sidewalk cafes, community events downtown. Gary Reeder, you've got the podium again, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to start off by saying that, in case you didn't know, this is Zach's last council meeting.
Oh,
He and his bride are moving back east.
I'm glad we're keeping him here late, so he won't forget.
We are taking him to the limit
Yes.
tonight.
Can we clap for him just because we love him?
Yeah, there you
Go,
go.
Zach!
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Your Honor. What we have before us tonight is a request for direction from the City Council. This matter was presented to Administrative Committee last week. The discussion had to do with, and I'll show you some photographs here, discussion had to do with whether live entertainment would be allowed in expanded sidewalk cafes. The legal determination was that the resolution that was passed by City Council allowing waiver of certain elements of sidewalk cafe ordinance, Moscow City Code regulating sidewalk cafes. In that code, live entertainment is not allowed in regular sidewalk cafes, and the resolution did not address waiving that. So the determination from the legal standpoint was that if it was not allowed in the original ordinance, it would not be allowed in a regular sidewalk cafe, regular meaning not an expansion, and was not addressed specifically in the expansion resolution, so it would not be allowed either. Unfortunately, there was at least one outside entertainment that was allowed in the footprint of an expanded sidewalk cafe. A noise or noise waiver was issued by the police, and so it went through. Questions came up about it, which prompted the discussion that we're having tonight. However, we wanted to make sure the council's direction to staff was to be as flexible as possible and yet uphold the intention of allowing sidewalk cafes, other downtown businesses in the central business district some flexibility so that they could hopefully provide and promote social distancing by expanding their footprint and thereby avoiding some of the unfortunate economic impacts of COVID-19. So, as I indicated, we took the issue to Administrative Committee, and Administrative Committee unanimously reported that they did not believe that outside entertainment was allowed, and but recommended that it be brought to council for their consideration as well. As an adjunct to this, one of the things that happens, as it were, when a business was unable to get a permit to have outside entertainment in the sidewalk cafe footprint, then applied for a community events permit to have live entertainment in the public rights of way, which is allowed by city code. It is something that our community events manager, Amanda Argona, manages, and it goes through a permitting process. It costs permit funds. You have to buy a permit and then go through all of the noise permit issues, street closures if one's requested, all of those sorts of things. Numerous staff members sign off on it, and if everything checks out, then they issue that permit with certain restrictions on it if those are necessary. Community events looked at the issue of sidewalk cafes and live entertainment and some of the comments made by Administrative Committee to the extent that actually singing in a sidewalk cafe can actually propel droplets containing COVID-19 even farther than just speaking to someone or breathing. Came to me and asked, okay, how do we proceed with these community events permits? So I said, well, we'll go ask the council. So that's why we're here tonight. Again, one of the main things was early on, I believe it was in mid-April, came to you with a report that many of the city's activities and events were being canceled. The concerts in the park were being canceled by the arts department, or excuse me, community events. Entertainment at Farmers Market was also canceled. Art Walk was canceled, not by the city, but Rendezvous in the Park canceled their event as well. So we have seen Renaissance Fair. We've seen a lot of community events shut down as to not wanting to expose people to the threat of infection. So with the city taking that stance, it seemed somewhat antithetical that we would then issue a permit for a private entity to have a entertainment that we have deemed not to be in the public's best interest to take place in the city's right-of-way, where the city has the right to say, yes, you may, or no, you may not. So that's why we're here for that. So there's two elements to it. One is to, I guess, further talk about the Sidewalk Cafe issue, as Administrative Committee did. And secondly is to talk about some direction as far as those community events. Now, I will say that there are community events that permits have been applied for that they have not been issued. Besides the entertainment in the right-of-way, there are fun runs that have been requested permits. So it'll depend whether they can be done in a manner that social distancing or personal hygiene can be maintained. There have been a couple of parades that have been applied for. We will deal with those also as more information is brought forth. So with that, I will show you the photos of the Sidewalk Cafes, and it's worked very well. The one you see before you is the one in front of Cafe Artista, which also runs all the way down to, where is it? Taft. And the public actually goes out into the right-of-way. The Jersey barrier there allows the businesses to come all the way out to the curb, and pedestrians are protected walking in the parking strip. Next one is across the street and up the block. Bootsers has a Sidewalk Cafe that has expanded south in along the right-of-way in the bulb outs. Then we have Coulter's Creek, which you can see just north, the two wine barrels and the two tables that are out there, is another expansion. Bloom, which has expanded south in front of New St. Andrews on Main. Here we have Cafe Lopez, or excuse me, Casa Lopez. She'll get me for that. Casa Lopez, who has expanded not only east, more into the sidewalk, maintaining the required 5 feet of ADA access, but also north with the permission of the Chamber of Commerce. Then we have Mikey Zeros, and I can't remember the name of this place. One World Cafe on 6th Street West. And then we have Myelina Pizza on the other side of South 6th Street, or south of 6th Street on Main. So these are all examples that we have other applications. We try to do what we can to try and allow folks to do that, to try and benefit businesses, but we're also looking for direction as council allowed us that flexibility. There have been some issues that we're continuing to deal with, some issues of encroachment in front of other businesses and things like that we're working through. But these are the things that we're looking for direction on. Unless the council desires to change the resolution, there is no legal basis for allowing the live music in the footprint of either the expanded cafe or the sidewalk cafes.
So with that all being said, the council really doesn't have to do anything, right? Kind of how you said it.
Community events.
I mean, the way you said it, they don't change the.
Yeah, unless the council wants to change that, but.
That'd be the only thing that would happen.
Well, we're
Committee
supposed to give
wanted to bring it
direction on
specifically in
community
front of council.
Okay.
And community event direction.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, there you have it. Yep. Brandy.
I'm just going to recuse myself from any
Okay.
discussion or voting.
Zach, could I have you allow the screen to come back up with Ann on it?
Just a quick recap of what I said at Administrative Committee is that we allowed the expansion of sidewalk cafes into the public right-of-way as a means of providing them more space to put in tables and help mitigate the loss of tables inside their cafes and therefore loss of income. And putting music back in there would go square against the intent of that part, as well as attracting more people down than the carrying capacity would be. And relative to community events, my feeling on it is that if the event can demonstrate proper distancing, masking, prevention measures being undertaken, I don't have a problem with that.
Sandra.
You know, I love live music. It's one of my favorite parts of summer, and I love the idea of hanging out at any of those businesses on the sidewalk and listening to music. But I think it goes against what we're trying to do. I think we want people, yes, to go downtown, and we want them to go to those businesses, and we want them to eat. Live music makes you mingle longer and brings in crowds. That's what it's supposed to do, and that's the really fun part about it. But I don't think this is the summer to do that. As much as it pains me, I do not think we should allow those venues to have the live music. I like it. I like to listen to it, but I think it's very counter to what we're trying to do in our city, and it would be very hypocritical, I think, of us to allow that to happen right now.
Gina.
Mixed messages are difficult to interpret. And so I do believe, and I agree 100% with my counselor friend here, that the allowance of live music in the sidewalk cafes or the extension thereof goes straight in the face of what we're trying to do. So I don't think that that is a good idea. I am a musician, and my Mad Money has been completely removed from my budget this year because all of our gigs have been canceled due to COVID, and I'm fine with it. You can't sing with a mask on anyway. The events in the public right-of-way, I agree principally with Art in that if they can demonstrate that they will do social distancing and a proper hygiene and that sort of thing, we should consider it. But I think our friend Brandon is a very good example of an event that got completely out of control due to no fault of your own. And that's the nature of the beast. And so I would really hesitate. While I like a good parade with the marching band better than most, this kind of a moment, it gives us too much opportunity to have an additional spread in our community. So I don't think we ought to have events in the public right away either.
Okay.
Maureen.
So I'm in favor. I really like the expanded sidewalks, and I appreciate the creativity that came up with that and how well our businesses have kind of used those to expand their economy and the people visiting it. In terms of community events and live music, you know, I think that if they could prove it would be interesting, but my concern about it is that music and singing, the droplets expand to like 26 feet. And so we don't have that much room in front of any venue to give you enough room for a singer not to be putting droplets out to the participants unless the participants are on the other side of the street almost, or sitting in the middle of the street. And then if you have to give 26 feet, somebody else can look it up, but, and then have a limited number of people, those people are singing to a very few people because there's no space for them. It just doesn't seem possible to me to make that work within the sidewalk cafe area.
How do you feel about the potential for fun runs?
Here's the issue on the fun runs, and I would not have thought about this until we got an email. We specifically got an email from a couple, and it wasn't with respect to this time, it was the previous time, and that basically it was a couple who were running, and the person in front of them, they didn't quite realize that the person was kind of coughing, and it was when they got up behind it, they thought, oh my gosh, I think this person's coughing. They each got the virus from that. They went home, they gave it to their 4-year-old, and I guess my sense is that unless you can regulate how fast someone runs on those things, which I think kind of defeats the whole purpose, I don't know how we can do that in a safe way. Maybe someone else can figure out how to space the runners and in a way, but that was a really troubling story for me to hear that in terms of a running. They just think, oh, it's a daily out there jogging and the person in front of them on the trail had the virus. Boom. That's what scares me about that.
Ann, how about you? You haven't weighed in yet.
Going last means I don't have much to add. When this came through committee, I had recommended that we, decline the ability to use the outdoor cafes for that purpose, and I stick by that now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Art, you were asking about fun runs. I don't know if I want to say I've had the unique pleasure of organizing fun runs, but I've organized many for the Humane Society. We do the fun run every June, and that's been one of the things I've been in charge of, and there's no social distancing at all. At the beginning, there's no, people are mingled in groups getting ready to run. They're running together. Yes, the guy that wins, he has a lot of social distance, or the woman that wins, there's some social distance.
Maybe.
Most people are all clumped up together, and that's why they call it a fun run, because of the social aspect of it. I think it would be a bad idea to try and have any sort of public group gathering run.
So, Gary, what direction do you need from council after?
What more direction do you need from us?
Yep.
I think I just got it. That you're not,
You think you're good to go now?
yeah, you're not going to amend the resolution to allow live music in the public right of, or excuse me, in the sidewalk cafes. And the recommendation is that we essentially suspend, unless they can demonstrate social distancing with some activity that we're not contemplating tonight, that we will suspend community events permits.
Okay. So we're good? Well, with Gary, that was the last of our agenda item. It's late in the evening, so I don't really want to take reports from everybody, but I thought maybe I'd ask you, we can do that at the next council meeting.
I think we can all report that we've been reading a lot of emails. over the
Yep, I
past
think
few days.
everybody's been pretty busy the last 4 days, 3-4 days. Gary,
Commission's
did
working really hard.
Gary, was there anything that you wanted to add with COVID before I ask for adjournment?
No, sir, I don't think there's anything that I haven't shared with council in email.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of us this evening. It was a long evening, but we got a lot of things hammered out, and we got a lot of good comments and a lot of conversation with everybody. With that, I'd entertain a motion from council to adjourn.
Let's go.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Adjourn at 10:41. Everybody.